Hello, I am Bewildebeast, and this is Twilight Princess Any %. The last time I commentated a run of this category was in 2022, when the record was 2 hours and 51 minutes. Now, in 2026, the record, which is currently this run, is 11 minutes faster than that, 2 hours and 40 minutes flat, or 2:40:42 actually, spoilers I guess. And that's because of a bunch of new tricks, a route change, and of course runners always getting better at the game over time, and I'm excited to talk about all of that. It's finally time for more Any %. For anyone unfamiliar with speedrunning, the only goal of the Any % category is to beat the game, and I'll use quite a few glitches and sequence breaks to do that as quickly as I can. So to start off, I'm clipping through the gate, and I'm doing a glitch called Back in Time. When Link voids out, the game tries to respawn him on the map that he was on, and when the game is reset, it tries to go to the title screen. So I just did both of those things on the same frame, voided out and reset, and Link respawned, but on the title screen. So I voided out to get rid of the splash screen, and then I just paused and saved the game. When I reload this save, Link will be in the Faron Spring, which is pretty convenient because I'm going to get the lantern now, though that's not really the main reason that I did Back in Time. If I had just clipped through the gate and kept rolling, I could have gotten to the Faron Spring in about the same amount of time. No, the important part of Back in Time is what properties title screen Link has. Because I saved as title screen Link, I've got what he's wearing. I've got the hero's clothes, the Hylian shield, and the Ordon sword, though none of those actually appear on the pause menu, they can be used. So I have a shield for shielding purposes, I have a sword for swording purposes, and I have a lantern for lanterning purposes. Though that of course had nothing to do with Back in Time, and everything to do with Koro. Thanks, Koro. In fact, there are two tiny uses of the sword already. I will slash while I'm passing this sign, just to make sure that my A press to roll doesn't make Link read the sign. And roll stabbing during that cutscene gave me a little extra distance, so I was closer to the load zone. I'm heading to Tallow now in North Faron, just like you'd normally do near the beginning of the game, but not actually at the beginning of the game. Normally, when you're playing this game casually, you would go through Ordon Village Day 1 and 2 before heading to Tallow. That's the part where you herd the goats for the first time, and get the fishing rod, and get the milk bottle and the slingshot. I haven't done any of that stuff, and I won't be doing any of that stuff, because I skipped it all by clipping through the gate. Just to finish up talking about the Back in Time save, the single most useful thing about title screen Link is that he's already tamed Epona. I won't be using Epona herself very much, sorry Epona, but Epona being tamed is the trigger for the wrestling match with Bo for the Iron Boots to be available. And that means that I'll be able to get the Iron Boots before leaving Ordon, instead of having to come all the way back to Ordon after Eldin Twilight, which without a route change wouldn't even be possible given the things that I'm going to skip. So in summary, Back in Time save, fast. Now I'm going to use this key that I just got to open the gate that's between me and Tallow right now. I should mention that it is possible to skip this gate entirely, and actually to do it in a fast way. If you're at all familiar with Twilight Princess speedruns or challenge runs, you may have heard of the rupee slide, where Link will slide through any collision as long as he's holding an object up to the camera, usually a rupee. The downside to rupee slides is that they're very slow. The one all the way through this gate takes over an hour. But if I were to clip into the gate before starting the rupee slide, then the rupee slide would only take a matter of seconds. There's a way to do that now. It's a trick called a displacement clip. And we're going to see an example of that, pretty much exactly what I was just describing, in Arbiter's grounds later on. But unfortunately, it's not really feasible RTA, which is to say for a human, for that gate, at least for now. You'll see it in a tool-assisted speedrunner TAS. There's currently an Any % TAS in the works that uses it. But the basic problem is that on top of the clip being extremely precise in both angle and position, you'd also have to get one of the bokoblins back at the gate to drop a blue rupee, which is random. And not only to drop it, but to drop it in the right place, and then you'd have to collect it on exactly the right frame for the clip to work. And that's just too much random stuff that has to go right. But there you go, I broke Tallow's cage in just under 4 minutes from starting the run. In a glitchless run, that takes around 11 minutes, so that's quite a bit of time saved by gate clip. Now I'll be herding some goats, and hopefully they'll behave, so I don't want to be hurting some goats. This is just a scripted thing that you have to do after saving Tallow, though if there were a way to clip past this gate on my right, then I could just go to the load zone and carry on without hurting the goats, but unfortunately we don't have a way out yet. There's some random elements here. The goats always spawn in the same places and facing the same directions, but the way they react to Link is variable. It just depends on RNG, which means random number generation. That's shorthand for anything random in a speedrun. Sometimes goats will react to Link's presence from very close up, and sometimes they'll react from very far away. Sometimes they'll move very quickly when they do react, and sometimes they'll only move very slowly. So I have a kind of standardized approach to goats, but I have to react to the RNG as I go. That was a 22, which is not great, but not too bad. I think my best ever in a run is a high 16 something. Now in a casual playthrough, what would happen here is I would go past Link's house to the crawl space in Ordon Spring, become a wolf, and go to the Castletown sewers. I'm not going to do that quite yet though, because I just conveniently spawned outside of Bo's house, and remember, because of the back in time save I did earlier, the iron boots are already available. If I hadn't done the back in time save, then when I came back to Ordon Village to wrestle Bo, a cutscene would have triggered outside his house and then continued inside his house with all of this dialogue that we're seeing right now. Because I did it with the back in time save, this cutscene is kind of broken. I do still have to advance through it to get to the wrestling part, but I have to advance through it manually by talking to him over and over again. There is actually a very small optimization that I'm going for here, which is keeping the camera oriented kind of this way while I'm trying to talk to Bo, so that when I do talk to Bo, the camera doesn't have to swing very far before the text box comes up. That actually does save time. Wrestling Bo is another big RNG component in the run. It's essentially rock, paper, scissors. On this cycle, he can stand still, move to the side, slap, or grab, and it's totally random. I got lucky there, he didn't move, so I was able to slap him, and I was trying to mash A quickly enough there to push him off in one cycle, but unfortunately I didn't mash fast enough. I'm not very good at mashing, so in fact, on the second cycle, I may actually just go for a grab instead of a slap. That makes it so that I can't possibly one-cycle him, but since I wasn't mashing fast enough to one-cycle him anyway, yeah, this is what I'm doing. So he actually did give me really good RNG there. The reason that there's kind of an advantage to grabbing on the second phase is that, unlike rock, paper, scissors, the different options that Bo has are weighted differently. And on the second phase, he's much more likely to slap, which I can counter with a grab, than he is to sidestep, which is where I would slap. The iron boots are going to be really useful for Morpheel and Argrok later, as well as a bunch of other smaller uses. They're technically not required. I could do everything I need for any percent by getting the magic armor and using it while unpowered, so Link is heavy. But that would be much slower, so I will not do that. What I will do though is save. I've made so much progress in the game, it would be a shame for me to lose it. But on top of that, there's one more use of the back in time glitch later on in the run. And it's for a slightly different purpose, it works a slightly different way, and I'll explain it when I get there. But as part of that use, I'll need a save file that has the right room ID, spawn ID, and area layer. And saving right outside Bo's house is perfect for that. Now I'm carrying on heading to the sewers, just like you would do in a casual playthrough, just a little bit earlier. Oh yeah, very, very small optimization here. Going into first person in this crawl space reduces lag very slightly, and that saves an entire less than 1/10 of a second. It's basically the same effect as putting racing stripes and flame decals on my controller, but it is a free time save. It's really nice how many cutscenes you can skip in this game just by pressing start twice. It's kind of strange that even some of the most important cutscenes in the game, like the ones I just skipped, are skippable, but hey, I'll take it. And now I'm a wolf! And my first act as wolf will be to chain some B attacks right as this cutscene is trying to start, so that during the fade out I can break the box. The chain prevents Link from getting close enough to the box to break it, but the chain also stops acting on Link as the fade out begins, and then because the box was already broken, I was able to go straight to the dig spot, which saved a couple of frames. Speaking of frames, I should mention that this game runs at 30 frames per second. Just like we learned back in school with that old rhyme, 30 frames has a second, April, June, and oh, you remember the rest. Ah, the days of my youth. There's a cutscene at the end of this hallway, and if I drop off in just the right place... Nah, I missed it. It's pretty precise. If you drop off in just the right place, then the cutscene will start before Link reaches the ground. It saves like half a second, maybe. Unfortunately, to get through the sewers, I'm going to need to pull this chain to let the water in, and then later pull another chain to let the water out so I can get to the crawl space. The water is only needed to get on top of the wall past the spikes, the one I'll be climbing onto in just a second. And what's unfortunate about this is that you can actually get a kind of weird jump off of a seam among the spikes that almost gets Link up to that ledge, but the jump just doesn't quite get him high enough or far enough. I am still holding out hope that at some point we'll find a way to skip these chains. Once the water drains, I'm going to do what's called a dash cancel to get off of this platform. If Wolflink's dash is interrupted within the first 10 frames, which I did just now with a B attack, then the nearly 2-second cooldown on dashing is skipped, so I was able to dash again right away after landing. Another small optimization here is talking to Midna from outside of her cutscene trigger before running into it, which just allows me to get through the text a little bit more efficiently since I was able to move between the first 2 text boxes. Next up, I'm going to fall off of this staircase so I can sue the owner of the tower for all they're worth. Kidding, of course. I needed to miss the jump once to make the Z prompt for these Midna jumps pop up. I actually skipped a Midna text box while doing that. If I had jumped down and landed in the water, then Midna would have said, "Ugh, what are you doing?" And that's just not very nice. Another small optimization we'll see here, and actually quite a few other times throughout the run, is what's called a one-framer, where there's 1 frame for input between text boxes or cutscenes. So between this Midna text and the Midna jumps, there was 1 frame where I could have gotten an early jump. That one unfortunately is kind of tough, but this one hopefully I'll get. Yeah, nice. So I skipped the cutscene with start, and then there was supposed to be some Midna text right afterwards, but there was 1 frame for input between the two, and so by inputting a jump attack on that frame, I was able to skip the Midna text by just jumping out of the text trigger. That's the easiest kind of one-framer, where I have to press something and then just press another thing on the very next frame. Whereas for one-framers like the one that I mentioned in the tower, and this one coming up right here, which maybe I'll get. No, I didn't. Those are harder because the frame for input is after the text box finishes closing, which is several frames after my last input instead of only 1 frame after it. None of the one-framers in this section of the run cost too much time to fail. It's maybe 1 or 2 seconds each. But there are some later on that cost a little bit more, and there's even one around half an hour into the run that costs over a minute to fail. So one-framers can be pretty important. Alright, there's nothing else I need in Ordon Village, so next I want to enter Eldin Twilight. There's a pretty big obstacle though. In front of the Twilight Wall, there's a Midna text trigger that forces Link to turn around because I haven't gotten the Ordon Sword or Shield. Thankfully, that text trigger is only on the ground, and the trigger for the cutscene that brings Link into the Twilight still exists behind the text trigger in the air. So if I can just jump— oh, Hugo's really far away. Get over here. The goal is to jump over the text trigger so that I can hit the cutscene trigger without getting the Ordon Sword or Shield, which is very convenient because at this point it's not even possible for me to get the Ordon Sword or Shield because of the back-in-time save I did at the beginning screwing up the state of Ordon Village. And even if I could get them, it would be faster to skip them. So anyway, this is Hugo. Hi, Hugo. He's got some nice eyes. I'm luring him all the way over to the entrance to the Twilight because I can't get a big enough jump to get over the Midna text trigger all on my own. But if I put Hugo and Link in just the right places and time some attacks just right, nice blue rupee, I can get a high-speed jump attack that can reach the Twilight entrance. This is what's called an enemy long jump attack. Hugo's behaving pretty well here. I should be able to go for this. There we go. Hit the cutscene trigger, and now I can enter Faron without the Ordon Sword or Shield. That trick, by the way, is called Sword and Shield Skip. I've never been able to figure out why. That trick is actually one of the harder tricks in the run, and it makes the learning curve for first-time TP speedrunners seem kind of steep at first. Oh, by the way, I'm going to dash cancel into this cutscene trigger. Just kept Link moving while the fade-out was happening. It makes the learning curve seem kind of steep at first, but in my opinion, overall, it's really not too steep. The run is just kind of front-loaded with a few difficult tricks. So if you're interested in learning to speedrun Twilight Princess, I would highly recommend joining the TP Speedrunning Discord server, so you can ask questions and we can answer them. And also looking at zeldaspeedruns.com/TP, where we keep all of our resources. And of course, if you have questions about the run and aren't trying to learn it yourself, feel free to ask them in the comments on this video or on my stream or wherever. Right, so why did I fail that Shadow Beast fight? Am I stupid? Well, I'm not going to answer that question actually, but I failed it because I needed to learn the Midna charge attack that I just picked up from Midna. I didn't actually need it to finish this fight. I could have done that in a different way that we'll see later on in the run, actually. But if I hadn't gotten it here, I would have been locked out of it, and it's hard required at the end of Lanayru Twilight, which in turn is required for beating the game, which again, is the entire point of this speedrun. It'll also be useful in some other places. In fact, you might have expected it to be useful in clearing Faron Twilight, but as you can see, I'm not doing that. I totally ignored the light spirit in the vessel, I'm ignoring all the bugs, I'm just dashing to North Faron right now. Now, I unfortunately didn't get the one-framer coming out of that dig spot. Hopefully, at one of the various dig spots in this run, I can show what that looks like. But yeah, I'm not going to be clearing Faron Twilight. In casual play, there are two main reasons that you have to. One is to become human again. I didn't get the one-framer there either. To become human again, and to leave Faron for the first time to get to Hyrule Field. And, well, it's one of the requirements for that anyway. But with the cunning use of glitches, I have workarounds for both of those things, so there's just no need to clear it. In routing speedruns, it is still worth considering clearing Faron Twilight. For instance, the optimal all dungeons route currently does clear Faron Twilight, even though it's not strictly required. I talk about that in my commentated all dungeons run, which you can go and check out, but not right now, you're busy watching this video. But for any percent, it doesn't work out to be faster to clear Faron Twilight. The fastest route that does is around a minute slower than the optimal route, which is what I'm doing here. In this next room is the messenger fight for the North Faron portal, but I don't actually want to open the portal yet. I can put these messengers to much better use. Kind of similarly to Sword and Shield skip, I need to lure this guy over to the right place and get the right kind of attack from him. Very nice, that was some good attack RNG. And I was able to super jump with the Midna charge attack off of the Shadow Beast, get out of bounds, and now I've just jumped straight to the Sacred Grove. This is a pretty major sequence break. The Sacred Grove leads to the Master Sword, which is where I'm going right now. That trick I just did was called Early Master Sword. I didn't want to spoil it by telling you. You're not supposed to get the Master Sword until you've finished the first 3 dungeons and beaten Midna's Desperate Hour, none of which I have done. And this is going to solve the problem of transforming back to human without clearing Faron Twilight. It'll also solve several other problems, but I'll talk about that in a few minutes. For now, I'm busy tackling this kid, and maybe quick climbing to him? Yeah, nice. If Link intersects a wall during his climbing animation, then the animation ends early, and that can cause him to get popped up if he's climbing in certain corners. There are multiple skips that you can do in the Grove as human, and there is even one that you can do as wolf, but unfortunately it's not relevant here. It involves doing a super jump off of one of the puppets, just like I did off the Shadow Beast to get here. And aside from it being extremely difficult, the big problem with it is that I can't do a super jump right now because I can't do the Midna charge right now because Midna isn't on Link's back. She only appears on Link's back outside of Twilights once you've beaten Midna's Desperate Hour, which is after Lakebed Temple, which I haven't even come close to yet. After this cutscene, if I time my dash just right, then I can start it right on the lip of the platform I'm on and jump all the way over the water. And you'll notice that I was able to dash again right away after landing. I didn't get a chance to mention this in sewers, but using a B attack isn't the only way to dash cancel. The other main way to do it is to jump off of a ledge, again within the first 10 frames of the dash. Technically, you can also take damage or bonk, but that's of limited utility. Unfortunately, I can't get quick climbs climbing up these ledges. It's only certain corners with certain geometry. I think there are about 5 or 6 of them throughout the run. I'll try to point them out. Here, I'll try to attack Skull Kid in such a way that Link falls off of this platform during the cutscene, and I'll be able to tell whether I got it by looking at where Skull Kid looks here. Yep, I got it. Skull Kid looks at Link there, so because he was looking at ground level, I could tell Link fell off. That just saves a small amount of time over having to jump off afterwards. I get to see Skull Kid disappear. Poof. That's all for the Skull Kid chase. Now I've just got the Skull Kid fight, which is starting in an interesting way. Yeah, that's not usually how Cycle 1 goes. Alright, what happened there? There's a cutscene trigger on the way down to Skull Kid that I would normally hit midair, but the cutscene trigger is inactive if Skull Kid starts doing his looking around animation, which he just does randomly. So what happened there is I jumped down, pressed start anticipating the cutscene trigger, but the cutscene trigger wasn't there because he started his looking around animation right before I hit it. So my start press paused, which wasn't what I wanted to do, and then because he had just started the animation, I was able to run all the way over to him before the cutscene actually triggered. I think I backed that up as best I could, but that was some bad RNG there. Anyway, for the other 2 cycles of the fight, I just needed to kill a puppet so that Skull Kid would eventually become vulnerable, and then time an attack on Skull Kid so that I didn't attack too early and make him teleport. I was also trying not to kill too many puppets, because each time Link hits an enemy, there's a short period of hit stop. It's only a few frames each time, but, you know, if you stand in the middle of a bunch of enemies and do a spin attack, you will notice it. It adds up. Now all that's left between me and the Master Sword is this puzzle, which thankfully is exactly the same every time, because it would be brutal if this were randomized. Something kind of interesting about this puzzle, you can see it starts off symmetrically. So you might expect that if I were to do the mirror image of the solution that I'm doing right now, it would still work. And you'd be right, it would still work. But for some reason, even though it's the exact same number of moves, it's 1 frame slower than doing it this way. And unfortunately, there's no known way to skip this puzzle as Wolf, which is too bad because it's trivial to do it as human now. Maybe someday. Oh yeah, each time you see the screen flash like that when Link is jumping from one block to another, that's just me pressing X to turn on senses during a 2-frame window during the jump. It doesn't save or cost any time, it's just for fun. So I've just picked up the Master Sword just over 21 minutes after starting my file, which is pretty quick. A glitchless speedrun would pick up the Master Sword around 2.5 hours into the run. Having the Master Sword early is useful for several reasons. I can now transform and use warp portals whenever I want, which will help me to skip Faron Twilight, like I mentioned before, but will also be useful in the other 2 Twilights, and it'll contribute to helping me skip the first 2 dungeons. The Master Sword also deals twice the damage that the Ordon Sword does, which makes combat faster in general and will allow me to one-cycle a couple of mini-bosses. It'll also be important for getting to Lakebed Temple early and skipping the Zora armor. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about how the route looks for this category. If you're not familiar with speedruns already, you may be wondering at this point how playing through the game even looks when there are sequence breaks this big. Well, working backwards from the end, I need to beat Hyrule Castle to beat Ganondorf. To enter Hyrule Castle, I will need to beat Palace of Twilight. To get to the entrance to Palace, I'll need to beat Arbiter's Grounds, and to actually enter, I'll need the 4 mirror shards. Except, I won't really need the 4 mirror shards, because the game only checks for the final mirror shard, the one from City in the Sky, which means I can skip beating Snowpeak Ruins and Temple of Time. To get to Arbiter's Grounds, I'll need to save Midna during her desperate hour, but just like with the mirror shards, the game only checks for the final fused shadow from the first 3 dungeons to trigger that sequence, so I can skip beating Forest Temple and Goron Mines. I will still need to clear Lanayru Twilight to enter Hyrule Castle though, and Eldin Twilight so I can start Lanayru Twilight. So this run skips quite a bit of the game. A full glitchless speedrun takes about twice as long. Now during this Master Sword cutscene we've just watched, if for some reason you were paying a lot of attention to the input display and no attention to what I was saying, you may have noticed that I was mashing pretty lazily through the text boxes. Some of them were staying on the screen longer than they needed to. I discovered fairly recently that because that cutscene waits until Midna finishes her animation to move on to each new section, it doesn't actually matter whether you clear the text boxes as quickly as possible. As long as I clear them fairly quickly, I'm not losing any time. But now I'm doing my very first warp of the run, already putting that Master Sword to use. But the Master Sword is only one of the 2 things that I'll need to escape Faron Twilight. I'll also need the Gale Boomerang from Forest Temple, so that's where I'm headed next. Unfortunately, because Forest Temple is in North Faron and I warp to South Faron, I am going to have to go all the way through Faron again, though it's going to be a little different this time. Warping to South Faron wasn't a mistake, by the way. I couldn't warp to North Faron because I never opened the warp portal. In fact, I couldn't have opened the portal while also going to the Master Sword early. Anytime a messenger fight ends, there's that cutscene of the portal opening, and that cutscene teleports Link to a set position in the arena. So if I were to somehow get the early Master Sword super jump while also killing all 3 Shadow Beasts, the game would just teleport Link back down and undo the super jump, basically. I'll cross this next area differently from how I did the first time. Because I can transform now, I can use the lantern to dispel the purple mist and go straight across instead of taking that long series of Midna jumps. This does look a little weird though. If you use the lantern here after the twilight, like you're supposed to, then the fog visibly disperses. You can see where is safe to go. During the twilight, it doesn't look right, but it still does work the same way. You could see those gray rings of smoke expanding when I swung the lantern. Those were the safe areas. This fight can get pretty tricky as human, since sometimes the Shadow Beasts just like to watch the wall and won't notice Link. Yeah, just like this. I was trying to get that far one to aggro by going around to its right, but I guess I didn't go quite far enough. That was an awkward one. Traveling across this area as human is also kind of tricky. The ground in this area is sloped pretty much everywhere, and Link loses a lot of speed between rolls if I don't chain the rolls frame perfectly when I'm on slopes, which is pretty tough to do in this area because it's so laggy. Oh, here's a little optimization. I'll roll stab into this cutscene trigger. Anyway, yeah, it's easier to cross this area optimally as Wolf, but since I needed to be human for the purple mist and to light this web, it would have been slower to transform twice. I made it to the Forest Temple, and now I just need to find the boomerang. The boomerang is over here, right? No, I don't see any boomerangs on the save menu. Too bad. Well, what I'm actually doing here is back in time. Just like at the beginning of the run, I just voided out behind the entrance to Forest Temple and reset the console on the same frame, and here I am on the title screen. But this time I'm going to do something a little different. While Link was voiding out, I opened the file select menu, and I chose the file that I saved right outside Bo's house back in Ordon. Now I'm in the King Bulblin fight, and now I've reset. The way that works is that the King Bulblin fight takes place on the title screen map. That's normal, that's just how it always works, whether you're doing glitches or not, it's on the title screen map. So if I get to the title screen map via back in time, and then load a file in a certain way, then if that file has the same room ID, spawn ID, and layer as the King Bulblin fight has on the title screen, it'll load the King Bulblin fight. By the way, I'm using this Deku Nut because I skipped getting the slingshot. Now if you were paying very close attention, you may have noticed that there weren't any boomerangs in the King Bulblin fight. So why did I want to load that? There's a spot in the game's memory we call the boss flag, that's primarily used in relation to boss intro cutscenes. Oh, I'm going for it. Can I get spider skip? I cannot, it turned the wrong direction. That's unfortunate. Anyway, when I loaded into the King Bulblin fight, the boss flag's value was 0, so the cutscene played. When I pressed start to skip the cutscene, it was set to 39, and then decremented every frame so that when the fight tried to start, it would still be non-zero, and the cutscene wouldn't just trigger again. That's the intended behavior. But the boss flag doesn't get cleared when the game is reset. So I reset while it was still counting down, and I'm now left with a non-zero boss flag value. What's useful is that the boss flag is also used to keep track of whether Link has rescued enough monkeys in Forest Temple to make the chain to the mini-boss, Ook. So despite having really rescued only one monkey, I'm now Jane Goodall. And just like Jane, I can now head directly to the Gale Boomerang in Twilight Princess. Here's a very small optimization. There was a one-framer before this Midna text popped up, and I rolled downwards towards the camera, even though the monkey chain was the other direction. I mentioned just before I got the iron boots that when I was talking to Bo, I was orienting the camera in a certain way, so that each time I talked to him, it would take less time for the camera to pan and the text box to appear. It turns out that rolling down on that one-framer just now positions the camera so that the Midna text pops up 5 frames earlier than it would have if I had done nothing. This fight with Ook has some RNG to it. Unfortunately, he started off facing away from Link instead of facing towards him, which is a little bit faster. And he hopped 3 times instead of only 2, which is the minimum. That's not too bad though. The worst I've ever gotten is 25 hops. But that's it, that's the entire fight. Because I have the Master Sword, I can deal enough damage quickly enough that I can one-cycle Ook, which is not possible with the Ordon Sword. Now I have a few last things to say about that back-in-time trick I just did. First is that using it to get monkeys just now did decrease the boss flag's value a little bit, but it's still non-zero, and that'll come in handy at one point later on in the run. Second, that King Bulblin fight was the real King Bulblin fight, so if I'd fought King Bulblin, I would have ended up in Kakariko Village just like normal. That sounds useful because I'm going to Kakariko very soon, but if I'd done that, I would only have had the game progress that I had on that Ordon Village save file that I loaded to enter the King Bulblin fight, which means no Midna or Master Sword or Boomerang. I'd just be stuck in Kakariko if I did that. There are some scenarios where that trick can be done using a file that already has some useful things, and that is in fact used in the current All Dungeons route, but it doesn't work out to be fast for any %, so I'll be going through the overworld to Kakariko. Lastly, I want to mention that that was the last use of Back in Time in the run. If you want to see a run with more Back in Time and Diababa nuts, you should check out Low Transforms. It's a pretty cool run. So, I've got my Master Sword and my Boomerang, now I can escape Faron and head to Eldin. So I'm warping to South Faron to do that, and I turned around before calling Midna there because the main area of North Faron is pretty laggy, so I'm just keeping it off camera. That's the last time that I'll call Midna to warp like that. It's a little bit faster to use map warping, which is opening the map menu and pressing Z to turn on portals to warp. I haven't used map warping so far because I don't have it yet. You get it by watching the cutscene after opening the Gorge portal. And I'm heading to the Gorge right now to get that, though there will be a little detour. Turns out map warping isn't just faster for warping, it's also really important for getting to City in the Sky early, at least in an any % context. I'll talk about that more when we get there. For now, I'm escaping Faron. What's stopping me from just continuing to dash straight to the load zone is a Midna text trigger that says I need to come back, I'm not done in this area, and that text trigger only goes away once I've cleared the Twilight and beaten Forest Temple. But those things are pretty slow, so I'll just do that instead. That technique is the boomerang long jump attack, and it's pretty handy. It's fundamentally similar to the enemy long jump attack that I got off of Hugo when I entered Faron, though it does work a little bit differently as Wolf. When Link does a jump attack while locked onto something that's over ground higher than what he's standing on, the game gives the jump attack a speed boost. That's presumably intended behavior to help jump attacks be more useful when an enemy has the high ground. But when Link throws the boomerang, he stays locked onto it, which means that if I can throw it over high ground, or avoid, which is what I'm about to do, I can get a long jump attack kind of wherever I want. There I just waited for the boomerang to go out of bounds where it was over a void, and I got a long jump attack that looked completely pointless, but in fact just barely got me over a postman trigger. If all goes well, I won't be seeing the postman at all this run. And here I am at the entrance to Eldin Twilight. As I said before, I will need to clear Eldin and Lanayru Twilights on top of the dungeons that I need to beat. But instead of going to Eldin, doing Eldin Twilight, then going to Lanayru and doing Lanayru Twilight, it'll make more sense to go to both regions first, then clear the Twilights back to back. That's because when I get map warping at the Gorge, which has to happen before I clear Eldin Twilight, I'll be forced to warp back to Faron. And I can make use of that warp as part of my trip to Lanayru. On my way to the Gorge portal, I will deftly avoid obtaining the youth's scent. I make a habit of not sniffing youths. And I'm just panning the camera down for some lag reduction. It's often worth doing that when you're dashing through a large area as Wolf. Great, so I've got my Gorge portal, and now I can learn map warping. Just kidding. Not doing that quite yet. There was actually a one-framer between the cutscene that I just watched and the map warping cutscene, and I didn't want to trigger the map warping cutscene just yet, so I pressed A on that single frame and voided out so I could respawn up here. Remember, learning map warping will force me to warp to Faron, so it'll be convenient to get the Kakariko Village warp portal while I'm here, so I can warp straight to Kakariko when I'm ready to clear Eldin Twilight. I can't use the Gorge warp portal to come back because I can't warp the bridge there until I've cleared Faron Twilight and beaten Forest Temple, which, again, would be slow. But getting to Kakariko without the bridge is kinda tricky too. I just did a boomerang long jump attack onto the fence and collected a rupee at the same time so that the text came up. That prevented Link from immediately sliding off on the other side so I could roll over to this side. Now with some careful side hops I can line up on this ledge, and then use one more boomerang long jump attack to cross the gorge. Who needs bridges anyway? That trick is called Rupee Roll and Gorge Skip, and speaking of trick names, I'm going to refer to long jump attacks as LJAs from now on. After this dig spot, I'm going to do some pretty weird looking movement, basically going to run around the perimeter of this area. What I'm doing is avoiding the King Bulblin 1 fight trigger, which in casual play you're meant to hit while riding Epona back to Kakariko after getting the Iron Boots. Getting the Iron Boots is what puts the trigger there. So the only reason it's there already is that I got the Iron Boots early by starting with that back in time save. I guess I should mention that the rule for Shadow Beast fights is that you can never leave one alive. If only one is left alive, it'll make the others respawn. Though if you do it just right, there can be a small delay on that respawn, and I'll take advantage of that on my way to Lakebed. We'll see that in a bit. So now I'm all ready to clear the Twilight, but I won't just yet, because again, I need to go get map warping from the Gorge, and the trigger for that cutscene only exists in the Twilight, so it's now or never. On the way back out, I will still need to dodge this King Bulblin 1 fight trigger, though in my opinion it's easier to do quickly going this direction. Man, I think I've failed every dig spot one-framer so far. And right as I get to the Gorge, I will hit the cutscene trigger, which is mercifully enormous. If it weren't this big, this whole sequence wouldn't work, because the only way to cross the Gorge going this direction is using Epona, and Epona makes the game crash in Twilight, so that's not really an option right now. As I mentioned, I can make use of this forced warp to Faron as a means of getting to Lanayru. The way you're supposed to get to Lanayru for the first time is through an entrance that's past some bombable rocks in the Eldin section of Hyrule Field. I could use that entrance even without having bombs yet, but it would be pretty slow, so I'm going to take the back way instead. I'll just need to escape Faron one more time to get there. I didn't get a chance to point this out last time, but you'll see me kind of inch up to the text trigger here. This LJA is pretty precise. If this text trigger were basically any larger, it wouldn't work. Speaking of which, boomerang LJAs don't work on the Wii version of Twilight Princess because Link doesn't stay locked onto the boomerang when the sword is drawn. So for a long time there was no way to do Faron escape on Wii, which led to some pretty big early game route differences from the GameCube version, which is what I'm playing here. Recently though, a different method of escaping Faron was discovered that does work on Wii, which saved Wii any percent several minutes and should save Wii 100% even more time than that, though so far nobody's done a run of that since the new Faron escape was discovered. We did work out a new route for it though, so I'm excited to see that someday. While we're on the subject, people often ask me while I'm doing runs whether I'm playing on Dusklight. No, I am playing with the GameCube disc and a Wii. That's on console. I don't know why anyone would play Dusklight at 480p and 30 frames per second. But anyway, here's the back entrance to Lanayru, and I'm in. It's fairly easy to get Wolf Link to clip through swinging gates. Now when you enter Lanayru the intended way, you dash basically across the entire region until you hit a cutscene trigger at the Lake Hylia Bridge, so I've just hit that cutscene trigger from the opposite side, and my, isn't the sky a lovely shade of green today? The area just doesn't load fully when you hit the cutscene trigger from that side. That's another case where it's really convenient that a cutscene trigger is enormous. But now I'm here in Lake Hylia, and my goal here is basically the same as what my goal in Eldin was before. I'm going to open up a warp portal, in this case the Zora's Domain portal, so that I can easily come back and start the Twilight when I'm ready. Going straight to the Zora's Domain warp portal here is actually the first big deviation that this route is taking from the route that I commentated back in 2022, which had been the route since 2014. On that route, after jumping from the bridge down into Lake Hylia, we would have gone straight into Lakebed Temple by clipping in underwater, so we could get Uku and the claw shot early. But in 2023, we found a few new glitches that actually made it faster not to go to Lakebed early. Well, I will still go there early, just not quite as early. Anyway, back to what's happening on the screen. I need to kill the Bulblin that's riding this Kargarok so I can fly to Zora's Domain. And the fastest way to do that is to lure the Kargarok towards the water, so that it dunks the Bulblin underwater while trying to grab Link, which immediately kills it, because this Bulblin never learned how to swim. Thank goodness it didn't come equipped with arm floaties. Fun fact, it's actually possible to drown the Bulblin rider without transforming to human and using the iron boots. You just have to swim in a pretty precise way as Wolf. But since I did transform to human, I had to transform back to Wolf here. Otherwise I would have been controlling Link on an out-of-bounds ledge while also controlling the Kargarok, and if I made Link jump off of the ledge then the camera would have gone crazy, and that would have made it harder to line up for this clip. You can see the benefit of this clip if you just look at the mini-map in the bottom left corner. This area kind of zigzags, but if I'm out of bounds, I don't need to zigzag with it. In fact, the load zone at the end of this area is just a vertical plane facing south, so I turned off the lights by turning on senses so I can see the minimap a little bit better and just try to steer due north with that, saving Hyrule as a brave little yellow triangle. It'll look like I'm doing kind of a bad job of that, but that's because the Kargarok automatically tries to fly back towards the inbounds area. So you can see on the input display I'm nudging left to steer back away from it. Yep, still flying. Alright, now after this flight there's supposed to be some Midna text that pops up, but there is a one-framer before it. So I was able to jump attack out of the trigger and skip the text. Now I just need to make my way up to the top of Zora's Domain where the portal is. Here I'm going to save just a couple of frames by keeping the camera panned close to Link so it doesn't have to zoom in for this Midna text. And this Midna text is actually unique. In every other case where there's Midna text and then a set of Midna jumps, there's a one-framer in between so you can get the first jump early. But for some reason, that text has no one-framer. What a ripoff. Now I can just get up to the top by cleverly not jumping directly into a big icicle. Something else I can mention about Shadow Beast fights that probably will be relevant here is that the order Link attacks enemies once he's tagged them with the Midna charge attack is opposite the order that he tags them. So I just tagged the Shadow Beast that was close to the barrier first, because if I had tagged it second, then Link would have attacked it first and probably would have bonked on the barrier, which would have left the last one alive, and then I would have had to redo the fight. And that's all for opening up the Twilights. Now I can warp back to that convenient Kakariko Village warp portal that I opened earlier, and start clearing the Twilights. To start off Eldin Twilight, I'm going to skip Midna jumping all the way to the top of the sanctuary, going down, watching a cutscene, doing a torch puzzle, not doing any of that. I'm just going straight to the graveyard. The bugs that sequence leads to are in the sanctuary basement, and there's another entrance to the sanctuary basement here through the well. The well is covered right now, but the collision is only designed to keep wolves out, not humans, since the game doesn't expect you to be human here. So I can just clip in. And how does one do well clip? Well, clip. You'll notice I killed the bug in the graveyard but didn't collect its tear. I will need to collect its tear, and in fact all 16 tears to clear the Twilight, but I'm going to come back for it and you'll see why in just a sec. So if I line this up correctly, which I didn't, then I could have hit all 3 bugs with one charge attack. But that's okay, I did it in a way that didn't really cost time. But you see how the tears take a second to form? They're not collectible until they've fully formed like that. So if I had wanted to collect the graveyard tear before entering the well, I would have needed to wait that short period for the tear to become collectible. But now, because the bug at least exploded before I entered the well, the tear was already collectible when I came back. Next up is the Malamart bug, and if you keep an eye on the minimap, you'll see that I'm just working my way northward through Kakariko, and I'll finish the Twilight on the 3 bugs in Death Mountain Trail. There's a nice manip for this bug. I can just bonk to dislodge it and then tap target until Link locks onto it, at which point it'll just run down here on its own. Also, while I was waiting for the bug to explode, I pushed it a little ways towards the crawl space just so I could jump off of that ledge sooner and still collect the tear. Next I'll head up to the Eld Inn. Never mind, I'm going back to Malamart. Whoops. Alright, heading to the Eld Inn. The directions on the Eld Inn website are totally wrong. The inn bugs are pretty satisfying to get, if all goes well. You can start off by lighting the fireplace, and I'm going to stand in a specific spot to the left of the fireplace to manip the bug to come out onto the floor instead of onto one of those upper wooden platforms. Now, I'm not waiting to collect the tear because I can just get it on my way out, but I bonked that counter on purpose to dislodge this bug up here so it started flying, and now while I'm waiting on its tear I can just grab this yellow rupee hidden behind the wardrobe, which I didn't get any text for since I already got yellow rupee text crossing the gorge with rupee roll. And now just a couple of jumps to the exit, and I'm out. Heading over to the abandoned house, I can point out my dash management. I'm going to delay a dash slightly as I get off of this wooden platform just to get a dash cancel by jumping. And then here the spacing's a little weird for dash canceling, so I just did a B attack after that jump to wait out the rest of my dash cooldown. I'll be trying to push this bug a little bit as well, just to get it out of the corner, so that I can stand in the corner and collect the tear with a jump attack. Hey, I got the one-framer on that jump. I don't think I've gotten very many one-framers this run, but I did get Gorge Void, and that's the important one. Fun fact, you may expect that me jumping through the window right now is what makes the window shatter when I load in. There it goes. But in fact, if I had entered as human through the door, the window would have shattered anyway. They just don't make windows like they used to. So by jump attacking from the right position, I manipulated that bug to die right where it did so I could collect the tear right next to the exit. And next up are the 3 tiers that I can get from the bomb storage facility. We call it the bomb house. But you'll notice that I'm not just dashing straight up there. The way this is supposed to work is there's supposed to be a bug that spawns as you dash towards the bomb house. And you're not supposed to be able to catch it. But I just did. So what happens now? The bomb house suddenly explodes and disappears without any cutscenes or anything. And all the tiers are fully formed and collectible, ready to go. Bomb house skip saves something like 40 seconds, and doing it with a wolf jump like that is kind of precise. It's not too bad though. There is a human method as well, where you transform, do a boomerang long jump attack, and then transform back, and that's much easier, but it is a bit slower. The watchtower bug can be kind of a pain. Let's see how this goes. I'm gonna try to get hit by it. Nice, and that manipulates it to move out of the corner. As long as it stays inside the corner, it's completely invincible, and sometimes if you don't do the manip, it'll just run in circles in the corner for a while. I say sometimes, but I mean often. It'll often do that. That bug sucks without the manip. Now let's see, Oh, I got a dig one framer. Very nice. So I just went for a jump down there. It's a little faster to side hop, but it's pretty awkward and it doesn't save very much time. I've just got 3 last tiers to collect, and they're all here in Death Mountain Trail. I'll need to do a bit of dashing in between them. There's not too much overworld dashing in Eldin Twilight, since the Gorge and Eldin Field aren't used for bugs. We'll see that Lanayru is a bit different in that regard. Oh, here's another quick climb. There you go. I don't even know how much time quick climbs save, maybe half a second or something. It's a pretty small time save, but most of them are really easy. Here again, I can just push the bug a little bit as it dies, so I can collect the tier from up here instead of waiting to climb. In this next area, I'm going to do something that looks a little slow, but is in fact fast. If you look at the minimap right now, you can see that as I dashed along that path, a new section of map appeared. When that section of map appeared, this area that I'm entering into now loaded. And when this area loaded, the steam vents began their cycle of alternating between blowing steam and not blowing steam. After I finish opening this portal, there will be 1 bug to kill here, and then 1 final bug in the spring behind this area. And the path to the spring is blocked by a steam vent. The way the steam cycle works out, it's technically possible for a task to get there early enough to make an early cycle, but it's really not possible for a human. So, all of that said, I just Midna charged that bug instead of jump attacking it. That's what all of that was leading up to. See, I need to wait on the steam cycle anyway. And remember, usually when Link hits an enemy, there are those few frames of hit stop, like I mentioned back in the Sacred Grove. Well, when you hit an enemy with a Midna charge attack, there's no hit stop. So I just saved 5 frames over jump attacking, since I had to wait anyway. There's the last bug, and I'm going to try to time this jump so that the tier becomes collectible when it's inside the back half of Link. Yep, just like that. And that made Link collect the tier instantly, instead of it taking a second like it sometimes does. So the Twilight ended before Link even touched the ground. There's a 1 framer before this Midna text, and I'll try to dig on it. Nah, I missed it. That's okay, it wouldn't have done anything anyway. There's nothing useful that you can do on that 1 framer. But now I'm off to start Lanayru Twilight. Recall that I already opened that Zora's Domain portal, so all I need to do is warp the volcanic rock there from Death Mountain. Unfortunately, the amount of time it takes the volcanic rock to fall is random, though it doesn't vary that much. So there's nothing I can do to speed this up, I just need to wait. But I am transforming human while I have the time, since for some reason warping the rock to Zora's Domain doesn't automatically transform me to wolf, and I'll want to be human there for a cutscene skip. There's another 1 framer here, which unfortunately I missed. I was trying to roll downwards, again to shorten the amount of time it took for the Midna text to pop up. Those are really all over the place. There's another 1 framer here that I'll go for. I'll try to side hop out of some Midna text. Ah, I missed it. But I can at least still do the cutscene skip. There's a cutscene with Queen Rutella, who is a dead fish, that activates if you try to leave this area on land during the Twilight. But I have the Master Sword, so I can easily transform to human, put on the iron boots, and use the underwater exit. I can also use the iron boots to fall a little faster down this waterfall, and now Link will forget that he's a human. The game definitely expects you to be wolf here. Anyway, I wanted to say that that 1 framer that I missed back in Zora's Domain is a pretty annoying one. It costs about 5 seconds to fail it, and there's just no way to time the input, you kinda just have to mash for it. There are no cues, what leads up to it is a totally black screen with no discernible audio. Here's my Lanayru vessel. And now I'm off on my second Twilight, which is supposed to be the third Twilight, but it's not. I skipped one. This is another case where I'll try to push a bug after I kill it, just to make its tears spawn a little closer to where I'm going next. Yeah, just a tiny push there. If you watch a TAS, a tool-assisted speedrun of this game, you will see some serious bug pushing, among many other things. The two portal fights that I'll do during Lanayru Twilight, which are this one, the Lake Hylia one, and the Castletown one, are a little tricky for beginners because of the fence placement. See, I can't really cross the middle of the arena here. But it's nothing I can't handle just by targeting the Shadow Beasts in the right order, so that that bonk happens after I've killed the final one instead of before. Now after this first jump, if I were to turn left, then I could make a somewhat precise jump over to this platform, skipping that other platform that I jumped onto. It only saves about half a second because Link has to ledge grab and then climb. And I don't go for it because it's very risky. If I were to fall, I'd fall in the water and then have to swim around for a while to get out. It would cost around 30 seconds and it's just not worth it. Some people do go for it. I'm just a wimp. The bug here in Zora's Domain is a little awkward. I'm going to attack the wall to dislodge the bug, and then I'm going to move in a specific way so that the bug moves kind of towards the load zone, so I can collect the tear on the way out. Now the trigger for that cutscene with Queen Rutella is still here, and I still don't like talking to dead fish if I can avoid it, so I will avoid it by, again, leaving the area underwater. This time is a little different though. I don't want to ride the waterfall all the way down because there's a bug up on a higher ledge towards the right side of this area. So instead I'll time a side hop off of the lip of the waterfall to land up here, pretty close to the bug. Oh no. I thought that was going to be too high to hit. And I jump attack too early. Not my finest rep of that bug. Hopefully the lily pad bugs will go a little better. They are notorious for being a pain, but I managed to hit one and got the other. So that's not too bad. With really good RNG, you can hit both of them at once, but that's totally out of my control. I can grab some rupees from the grass while I'm waiting for this tier to become collectible. Only 2. You can get at least 11 rupees from that grass with really good RNG, but that's not a big deal. Hopefully I can get at least 1 rupee in this next area, which is pretty likely. The only thing I need rupees for in this run is paying Fire to fix the Sky Cannon, which costs 300 rupees. And the way it works out is if I have 55 rupees or more here, then I don't need any extra rupees. If I have 50 or more, then I can just get 1 extra blue rupee. And if I have less than that, then I can either get an extra red rupee or get a blue and a green. But hopefully I'll get at least 1 rupee here. Oh, none from those boxes. There we go. In a speedrun at least, Eldin Twilight and Lanayru Twilight feel pretty different from each other, and this next section is a big part of the reason why. Remember, in Eldin Twilight, all of the tiers were either in Kakariko Village, or the Graveyard, or Death Mountain Trail. The Kakariko Gorge and the Eldin section of Hyrule Field weren't used at all. In Lanayru, on the other hand, there's one bug in Castletown, and Castletown is way over there. So it's time to dash in a straight line. And again, I'm keeping the camera pan down to reduce lag. Ironically, this section where nothing happens is one of the most input-dense sections in a tool-assisted speedrun. There's a technique called brake sliding that I'll use later on in this run, but in a task setting, it can be used when Link is dashing up a slope to prevent the slope from reducing his speed far below what it is on flat ground, which slopes normally do. Modern brake sliding involves moving the control stick among various precise positions on every single frame in a pattern that doesn't always repeat simply, so you can see why I didn't do it there. But that area was mostly sloped upwards slightly, so a task would brake slide pretty much the entire way across it. Mom, are we there yet? Oh, yeah, we're there. Once again, I'll be sure to tag these shadow beasts in the right order so I don't bonk. Well, not this one. These two. If I tagged these two in the opposite order, I would almost surely bonk before the fight was over. And with that, I can finally enter Castletown. If I'd wanted to, I could have skipped that portal in a couple of different ways, but I'm actually going to use it right at the end of the run. Oh no, he changed his mind. Now, it's a good thing that I've explained dash canceling already, because, well... That's right, I am just dash canceling through Castletown. Wolflink's dash speed depends on the area he's in. In some areas, usually larger areas, it maxes out at 45 speed, and in other areas it maxes out at 33. Oh, by the way, I'm going to do this neat little side hop, and... Ooh, that was actually a good save. So that bug, kind of like the Watchtower bug back in Eldin Twilight, is completely invincible until it falls off that ledge. And the way it fell out of the box, I could tell that it was going to do a few circles on that ledge before falling off if I didn't do anything. So I actually pushed it a little bit to alter its trajectory so it fell off right away. That doesn't always work, but I'm glad it did. Anyway, in Castletown, Wolflink's dash speed starts off kind of like a normal dash, but then the speed quickly falls to 25. And that's so slow that it ends up being fastest to start a dash, immediately cancel it with a B attack, which is 30 speed, and then just repeat. That bug behaved pretty well. If I'd used a charge attack on it, then I wouldn't have gotten any hit stop, just like that bug back in Eldin. But if I'd done that, I wouldn't have had any control over where the bug landed after I hit it. And if a bug lands in the water, then it takes longer to explode than it does if it lands on land. Next up are the Kargarok flight bugs. This is my second Kargarok flight of the run, and it won't be my last. I know you're on the edge of your seat. This first bug has been ignoring my texts, so I'm just gonna pass it by, give it the cold shoulder, let it see how it feels, and go straight on to the second bug. And lo and behold, the first bug, feeling bad but not knowing how to apologize, has flown directly into my path. Apology accepted. There's less drama with these bugs. I'm just going to kill them. And I don't want to take this flight all the way to Upper Zora's River, so I'm just going to bonk here, and that'll take Link all the way back to Lake Hylia, spawning him very conveniently right next to the penultimate bug, after the longest load of all time. Lake Hylia loads pretty slowly. So there's that bug, and as I collect the tear, I'm going to try to dash cancel off this ledge. Very nice. That little cutscene that just popped up when Link collected the tear can be pretty annoying, because if you're just dashing towards a ledge when that pops up, then he'll do a ledge grab instead of a jump, and that is much slower. Once again, I'm keeping the camera facing a certain direction here just to reduce lag, and here's the final bug. It's a bit larger than the other bugs. I'll just need to latch onto it like that 2 more times to finish the fight, but I can speed that up a little bit in a few ways. First, I'm keeping the bug on camera all the time, because it can't start its attack when it's off camera, so this just guarantees that it attacks as soon as possible. And then there, I was able to hit the bug as it charged at me, instead of waiting for it to fly up and do a second aerial attack. I'll explain this in a sec, but notice that I delayed jump attacking onto the bug a little bit there. Here though, if I position myself just right, I can release my charge attack so that Link bonks during the cutscene, and that cancels the scripted animation of Link charge attacking all 6 of the legs. Right, so I was going to say I delayed jump attacking onto the bug there because when the bug is still kind of clipping into the raft, then jump attacking onto it will just make Link pop back off. So I have to pay attention to that. But that's it for Lanayru Twilight. I am done with Twilights for this run. The rest of this run is all Princess. My first order of business post-Twilight is to get a bomb bag. The first bomb bag that you're supposed to get is the one that you buy from Barnes, but buying that requires beating Goron Mines and King Bulblin 1, which are pretty out of the way. The other two bomb bags in the game come from the Underwater Goron, which is the one that we used to use in this category, and from Isa, which is the one that I'll be getting now. Though I'm not going to get it in quite the intended way. The bomb bag will be important for skipping the Zora armor, which takes longer to get, and you'll see how it skips the Zora armor in 10 minutes or so. So I'm heading down to Upper Zora's River to get to Isa, and on my way there are two important things I need to do. First is to miss getting this rupee. Oops. Oh no. Oh no. This can be so much smoother. Right, there's one more rupee to get. And second, I want to take some damage. It used to be that there were no death warps no intentional death warps in this category, but now there are two, and I'm preparing for the first one. Aside from Isa, Upper Zora's River also has a Howling Stone, and at some point in the run I'm going to need to learn the first hidden skill, Ending Blow. You can't beat the game without it, you just can't do the final input to defeat Ganondorf. In a casual playthrough, you're supposed to get Ending Blow from the Golden Wolf that automatically spawns outside of Forest Temple, but I never spawned that wolf because I never cleared Faron Twilight. So I'm just going to use this Howling Stone to spawn the one that's outside Castletown on the west side, since that'll be pretty convenient later on. Each Howling Stone does correspond to a specific Golden Wolf location on the map, but each Golden Wolf doesn't correspond to a specific hidden skill. No matter what, you'll always learn the hidden skills in the same order, regardless of what order you visit the Golden Wolves in. Of course, I only want the first hidden skill. Any Golden Wolf would do. Next up is getting the bomb bag from Isa, which isn't very complicated, but looks complicated if you don't know what's going on. So here's what's going on. I'm going to talk to Isa so that I can start the messenger fight. That's the beginning of the process regardless of how you're doing it. The game really wants you to do this fight as human. If I were to just roll back behind that sign and transform, and then go in as wolf, then the fight wouldn't start. But if I barely brush the fight start trigger as human, and then transform to wolf, the fight will still start. Now, why did I want to do this fight as wolf? I'll explain that in just a minute. But first, I need to explain how I'm going to do this fight as wolf. Because, as you'll see, I don't have Midna on Link's back right now, so I can't do the Midna charge attack. I can still just kill this first guy, that's easy, but the game tries not to let you finish a Shadow Beast fight as wolf without the Midna charge attack. But if I do a very specific amount of damage and time my last attack just right, then I can. That's what I was alluding to like 45 minutes ago when I said that I could have finished the South Faron portal fight without getting the Midna charge attack, though again, that would have soft-locked eventually. So now that I'm in this cutscene as wolf, Isa will shoo me away so I don't become a rogue, thanks Isa, but then will invite me in anyway, which is what she normally does for human Link. She'll also lend me a bomb bag, and the way this bomb bag is supposed to work is you get to keep it through her first minigame, or until you try to leave through the door, at which point she takes it back. But I did neither of those things. I warped away because I could easily as wolf. There is a way to do that as human too, though. And where I warped was right back to Upper Zora's River, where Isa will invite me back in. Unless I clear this cutscene properly as human, Isa will just keep inviting me back in anytime I go to Upper Zora's River. And this has a further glitchy effect. If you look at the item wheel here, when I get a second lent bomb bag from Isa, I appeared to have an empty bomb bag and a black rupee on the item wheel. The black rupee I don't care about, it's just a null item as a side effect of the glitch, and it'll disappear on its own soon. What's important is that that bomb bag I have now is a permanent bomb bag. The lent bomb bag that I stole by warping away the first time would have disappeared the next time I saved, died, or hit a post-boss save prompt, but this one I get to keep. Now here's a little cutscene skip. I'm just going to jump around the trigger for Plum to come down and start explaining his minigame. Plum's minigame is a crucial part of the way we now enter Lakebed Temple without Zora armor in this category. So let's talk about layers. As you progress through the game, it loads different layers of the areas you go to. When I jumped down to Lake Hylia for the first time, it was on layer 13, which has the Kargarok and the low water. It was on layer 14 during the Twilight when the water was high. And now, between clearing Lanayru Twilight and beating Lakebed Temple, it's on layer 0, where there's a Zora standing near Plum directing your attention to the dungeon. Hi, Postman. As you can see, I'm so bad at Plum's minigame, which incidentally takes place on layer 4 of Zora's River, just remember that. So bad at it that I not only didn't get enough points, but I also went out of bounds and bonked and voided and died. How embarrassing. Failing Plum's minigame always respawns Link in Lake Hylia, but this time it'll spawn him in Lake Hylia on Layer 4, which has a few things missing. Like the water, all of it, it's all gone. Layer 4 is just an unused layer in this area. You're never supposed to access it through normal gameplay. So why did the Plum minigame layer carry over to where I respawned? That doesn't happen most of the time, but it does between Lanayru Twilight and Lakebed Temple, because that's when the wagon escort for Zora armor is available, which takes place on specific layers in Hyrule Field. If you die during the wagon escort, the game forces you to respawn on the same layer you were on, so you can continue the escort rather than spawning on the default layer for Hyrule Field. Also, sick bomb boost, now I'm in Lakebed Temple. What's presumably unintended is that the layer override I was just talking about works everywhere in the game. And while it doesn't really do anything in most areas where dying respawns Link in the same area, this specific case where I can die in one area to respawn in a different one is powerful. I'll talk more about entering Lakebed from empty Lake Hylia when I have some time after I beat the dungeon, but for now I just save warped after entering the dungeon. The save warp spawn point is initially at the beginning of the underwater tunnel, but if you have the Master Sword, as I do, it changes to being on land beyond the tunnel, because otherwise if you were to come back here after getting the Master Sword in casual play, and then save warp as Wolf, you'd be stuck in the tunnel. But that's very convenient for speedruns, because I had no way of getting through the tunnel without drowning. This cutscene and the gate in the previous room are actually both skippable, but it saves such a small amount of time to skip them that it's not worth it in this route because I'm going to be crossing these rooms twice, so I'd have to skip each one of them twice. I'm skipping knocking down the stalactites in this room and crossing it the intended way, just using some boomerang long jump attacks. I'm also getting rid of some bombs. I know you're wondering, we'll talk about that in a minute, but in this room we'll see this run's first use of some tech that's new as of this year. I'm just going to get in a very precise position here, using a simple setup, and then go under the door. I want to go to the east wing of the dungeon to get the claw shot, and it's 1 second faster to do it this way, swimming in this out of bounds water and then popping back in, than to go into the central room and then come back out on this side. The clip I did to get out of bounds is called a displacement clip. Basically, if Link's position is identical to a wall's coordinate, he can stand inside the wall without getting pushed back out, though he can't actually go through the wall. But if there's ceiling collision underneath that wall, it'll push him down, like a good ceiling. Just now, after a position setup, I got Link exactly inside the door's wall collision, using a roll stab, which gave Link enough displacement in one frame to make his own collision go directly from not touching the wall to being perfectly inside it. The ceiling collision on the bottom of the door then pushed him down, clipping him out of bounds. Anyway, I'm now entering the Deku Toad fight through the exit door, and normally you can't start the fight from here, but I can. Also, check out this bomb toss. That skips the whole tadpole cycle, and there's just barely enough time to do that. And now I can finish off Deku Toad in just one cycle since I have the Master Sword. So why was I able to start that fight from the exit door? Normally if you enter that door and look up, nothing happens. You're supposed to enter this room through an underwater tunnel. Once Link surfaces, a little cutscene plays of the tunnel door shutting, and then you can look up at the ceiling to start the fight. But remember back in Forest Temple when I used that back in time trick to set the boss flag so I didn't have to rescue all the monkeys? As I said at the time, the primary use of the boss flag is to make boss intro cutscenes not replay if the flag's value is non-zero. After I used the boss flag to obtain monkeys, it still had a non-zero value, so when I entered Deku Toad's room just now, it made the game skip the intro cutscene at the top of the underwater tunnel, so I was already on the step where I could just look up. So about all those bombs I've been dropping, you can see my bomb bag is now empty, and now it's got some bombs in it again. But this time they're water bombs. You can only have one type of bombs in a bomb bag at a time, and I need the water bombs for a glitch coming up, so I just needed to get rid of all of my normal bombs first. Speaking of which, if you're wondering how I had normal bombs in the first place, given that when I did the glitch to get a permanent bomb bag from Iza, the bomb bag appeared to be empty, that's just a side effect of that glitch. When she gave me the temporary Lent bomb bag, it was full. And when I game overed doing the glitch to empty Lake Hylia, the empty permanent bomb bag reverted to the Lent bomb bag's contents. It only does that once, but that's just how it works. Now this time I'm not displacement clipping through this door, and am in fact loading this room because this is where the boss door is, and I'm going to the boss. That said, I don't have the boss key, but this dungeon is special in that the boss load zone and the boss door are not actually tied to one another. Unlike the 3D Zeldas that came out before this one, if you just get behind a door in Twilight Princess, it doesn't take you through the load that door activates. You'd still have to open the door from behind. But here, there's just a hole in the ground, totally separate from the boss door. Unfortunately, no other boss load zones are like this, so this is currently the only known boss key skip in the game. But on the plus side, this is also the only dungeon where the boss key is pretty far out of the way, so it kinda works out. So now I'm sinking down to the deep underwater boss without the armor that lets me breathe underwater. But don't worry, I have a plan. Just before my air meter runs out, I'll hit the cutscene trigger to start the fight, and that'll refill the air meter, very conveniently. The mid-fight cutscene after this first phase, however, will not refill the air meter, so I'll need to do something else. Just before the eyeball jumps back... Nice dodge. That's just some bad luck. There we go. Now, just before the eyeball jumps back into the mouth, I'll try to pull a water bomb and then force unequip the iron boots by equipping something else over them. As you can see, Link pulled out the water bomb, which normally he can only do when he's standing underwater, but he's no longer standing, he's swimming because I took the iron boots off. This is never supposed to happen. The text box that I got when I opened the water bomb chest just a couple of minutes ago said explicitly, you can use these bombs underwater, but not while swimming. And it turns out that if Link is a rebel who doesn't play by the rules and does swim with a water bomb, then when he releases the water bomb, the game will take him out of his swimming state for 2 frames, and that's enough to refill the air meter. So the plan for this fight is to do 3 cycles of damage on Morpheel as normal, while also managing Link's air meter by sinking down to the ground and pulling out another water bomb whenever I need to. Unfortunately, the way that Morpheel swims is random, so the plan I just outlined is easier said than done. If Morpheel had swum directly at Link after the cutscene, then I could have done what's called a 1 bomb, which is to say I would complete the entire fight with the air I got from that first bomb. Unfortunately, with the RNG that I got, I couldn't do that, so I have to refill with this second bomb, but hopefully I won't need to use a third. This looks a little far away, I might want to swim closer. Yeah, that's what I thought. And after this cycle, I'll go for a re-grab. If I force unequip the iron boots, then Link will immediately fall off with Morpheel instead of having to wait to get bucked off. Then with a well-timed claw shot, I can get right back on and deal the final blow. I mentioned already that I'll need the first hidden skill, Ending Blow, to finish the game. I didn't actually need it. Oh, this is interesting. The path Morpheel takes in this cutscene is partially random, and I got an interesting one. This should be fast. Because the path is partially random, this cutscene is actually variable length. I think this will be a fast one. We'll see when we get to the end of it. Anyway, I was saying, I didn't actually need Ending Blow to deal that final blow to Morpheel, even though it really looked like an ending blow. The prompt to do that always comes up for Morpheel, even though it doesn't for Faron or Diababa. This run, by the way, finally answers the question of where all this water goes. Gotta refill Lake Hylia somehow. But that's 1 dungeon down out of the 5 I'll need to beat this run. And again, the point of beating Lakebed was to start Midna's Desperate Hour, since to enter Hyrule Castle I'll need to take down the barrier around it, and the barrier only exists after Midna's Desperate Hour. One way to tell how long the cutscene was is to listen to when Midna pops up relative to the background music. Okay, that wasn't the fastest, but it also wasn't the slowest. I can't say I know exactly how fast and slow it can be, but the difference between the fastest and the slowest is roughly 5 seconds. Before I head out, I'm going to grab this heart container. It's not strictly necessary, but it costs so little time that skipping it would very likely be slower if it meant that I needed to go out of my way for health at any point later on in the run. I choose to get it because I'll take some intentional damage and potentially some difficult to avoid damage on the way to Snowpeak Ruins, where I'll be doing another displacement clip whose normal setup doesn't work on critical health, and because there's a chance of getting hit by several enemies in Palace of Twilight completely unavoidably immediately after a cutscene. To start off Midna's Desperate Hour, I need to dash to Castletown. Again. Just like in Lanayru Twilight. So I'll take this opportunity to talk some more about how this run's route came about. The main difference between this route, which I worked out in 2023 and has been the optimal route ever since, and the old route dating back to 2014, is how Lakebed was done. The empty Lake Hylia glitch that I did had actually been discovered by March of 2007, within a few months of the game's release. But until 2023, we hadn't figured out a way to enter the dungeon from the empty lake, because there was never a reason to. It wouldn't have worked out for the route until the trick that I did with the Upper Zora's River Shadow Beasts was discovered in May of 2023 by someone named Percy, who did it by accident on a different Shadow Beast fight. So a bunch of us worked on various methods of entering Lakebed from the empty lake, with Nimzo ultimately coming up with the best setups that we still use today. In the old route, we got the claw shot early on our first trip to Lakebed, but unlike all dungeons or 100% where the claw shot is useful to have early, we never actually used it in any percent until Morpheel on the second trip, so the current route doesn't miss out on anything there. And the new route having the bomb bag prior to fighting Deku Toad is what enabled me to do that quick kill, which incidentally was discovered in 2014 by Rachel, but the original method was extremely precise. I'm not sure whether anyone ever did it outside of a TAS. It's viable for runs now because EJ and I came up with some improvements to the setup, and it's still tricky, but not nearly as precise as it used to be. Now would you look at that, I'm in Castletown. I yapped my way through to the other side, as the kids would say. I've got a cutscene with Louise coming up, and there's no known way to skip it, but if I enter it just right, I can make it a little shorter. Nah, I missed it. There's a frame-perfect B attack that I could do there to skip a camera pan during this cutscene. It's this one, before this text comes up. And that saves 1.4 seconds. So, not a huge deal, but it's always nice to get it. What's kind of fun about that one is that unlike the ways that I've made other text appear earlier by facing Link or the camera in certain ways, I don't have any control to do that after the cutscene starts. But starting it in just the right way screws up the camera through the entire cutscene, leaving it fixed and up in the air, kind of behind where Louise is walking right now. The next step in returning my faulty Midna to the Midna store is going through Telma's bar, and there's a cool jump that I can do right at the beginning to skip one of the tight ropes. Hopefully I'll get that here. That jump is a little trickier than it looks, but more than anything it's just risky. It saves around 3 seconds over using the tightrope, but if I were to fall and get caught, or not fall and get caught, that can happen too. Link can actually grab the rope and then still get caught. In any case, if I were to get caught, I would be thrown out, and that would cost nearly 30 seconds. Here's my first Poe-Soul, and I apologize if those are your favorite collectible in the game, because I won't be getting any more of them. One of the many interesting things that I learned while making the glitchless TAS in 2024 is that on this next water slide, moving to the side while being swept down by the current doesn't cost any time at all. So I'm swimming over to the left because that's where the stick that I want to grab is. Now in a glitchless playthrough, I would want to keep this stick. There's another web later on. But this is not a glitchless playthrough. I already have the Master Sword, so I can just transform and use the lantern. Oh, here's another quick climb. Ah, I missed it. I find that one a little harder than most of the others. That web, by the way, is why I used the lantern instead of some other item to force unequip the iron boots at the end of the Morpheel fight. Next up is the tower, like every great sewers system has. As another point of reference for how layers work, this is just another layer of the same map that I was on when I was first transformed to a wolf at the beginning of the game. Though one of the changes on this layer is that that jump was possible this time. I had to knock down that Bulblin archer because otherwise he would have sniped me as I got towards the top of the room. Or even here, just at some point he would almost certainly have sniped me. The way that Link snaps to these tight ropes makes them difficult to get on and off sometimes. You can see that I'm running well clear of the tight ropes that I don't want to get on. Now I could skip some of this tightrope by doing an LJA off of this Bulblin, but it screws up the camera so much that it makes these jumps much harder, and those jumps save much more time. But I did an LJA on that last Bulblin anyway. On the rooftops, if my movement is good enough, then I can make it to the bridge without having to wait for any extra wind cycles. Looking good so far. And I'm going to line up in a specific way here. This bridge is notorious for just kind of, well, things like that. You saw Link kind of landed twice on the bridge. The collision for that bridge is just really strange. You can actually just jump straight through it sometimes. And as far as I know, no one is perfectly consistent at crossing it. But the lineup that I do might help, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, I've made it to the Midna store, and I still have my receipt, so now I should be good to go with my new one. I'll try to be a little more careful this time. Having completed that section, I've now put up the barrier around Hyrule Castle so I can take it down eventually, To do that, again, I just need to beat Palace of Twilight, which means beating Arbiter's Grounds and City in the Sky as well. So the second half of the run is going to be more of a dungeon rush than the first half was. And here's that convenient golden wolf that I spawned, howling at the stone in Upper Zora's River. In terms of routing, the second half of the run will be more similar to my last Commentated Any % run than the first half was. But it's also where I'll save most of the time over that run, with some big new tricks and strategies. There's a lot of cool stuff left. One very small convenience of using this golden wolf to learn Ending Blow is that this one spawns Link very close to the hero's shade, so I can just poke him here. If I were using the Faron golden wolf, then Link would have spawned a little bit farther away from him, so I would have had to jump attack, which is a little slower. Aside from Ending Blow being necessary for the final input in the game, I showed in my All Dungeons commentary and in the Ultimate Delivery that it has another very important use. Well, that was true for about 6 months, but it doesn't anymore. If all goes well, I will use it exactly once. Well, once more. I guess I did just use it on the hero's shade, and in that cutscene. One more time after this. Now there's a quirk in using any golden wolf other than the intended Faron golden wolf to learn Ending Blow. Even though I use the golden wolf outside Castletown, I'm going to respawn in Faron as though I'd used that wolf. And in fact, the game doesn't fully treat the golden wolf outside Castletown as being used, so it's still there later. That's not useful in this category, since the second hidden skill, Shield Attack, doesn't save nearly enough time to offset the time it takes to learn it. But I did manage to work it into the 100% route very recently, which is pretty neat. But I've just warped to Zora's Domain, and I'm now headed to Snowpeak Ruins, which apparently I pronounce as Snowpeak Ruins when I say it fast, which is very funny, and which I will never unhear. But I'm going there, even though that isn't one of the dungeons that I need to beat the game. I do need to get the ball and chain from there so I can fight the Blazetta phase of Zant. On my way there, I'm doing this neat set of jumps as Wolf. It's not very precise, but it's kind of awkward with how the camera acts in that area. On the way up Snowpeak, there's a blizzard that will void me out because I don't have the Reekfish scent. Rats. But that's okay. I'm doing a trick called Map Glitch instead. To do it, I just opened the map and called Midna on the same frame, then chose to warp from the map and had the warp interrupted by Midna's text. Trying to start the warp made the game deactivate void planes and most load zones, so I can get through the blizzard unhampered now. Since in this route Snowpeak Ruins is after Midna's Desperate Hour, I do have Midna available on Link's back now, so if I wanted to, I could do a different strategy to do a super jump around the void plane instead of using Map Glitch, using one of these Wolfos up here. That's what's done in Twilight Princess HD speedruns because Map Glitch was patched in that game, but it's pretty uncommon to see someone do Wolfo super jump when Map Glitch is available. In theory, the super jump is the faster option. Oh, here's some more quick climbs, by the way. For reasons that we'll see in a sec, I know Map Glitch looked pretty fast so far. But in practice, it would be extremely difficult to do faster than Map Glitch. It's a notoriously difficult trick, and while it can, in theory, save roughly 10 seconds over Map Glitch, there's also some RNG to it, and in a lot of cases, it's not possible to save time with it at all. So how could anything possibly be faster than Map Glitch? All I did was open the map and talk to Midna. Remember though, not only void planes were disabled, load zones were as well. If I tried to dig into the connection cave right now, Link would start the digging animation and soft lock. But there's a Deus Ex Machina here in the form of this Howling Stone. Even though normal load zones are deactivated, using the stone to trigger loading into the Hero Shade map still works, and disables Map Glitch. So now I can just leave to get back to Snowpeak and continue on my way. Of course, if I'd done Wolfo Super Jump, then I wouldn't have deactivated all the load zones, so I wouldn't have needed to howl there, and that's what makes it a little faster. Connection Cave's a pretty fun room, when it goes well. Hopefully I won't be destroyed by an ice key. Oh no. Whew. If that keys had decided to aggro after flying directly in my way, then it could have gotten pretty messy. But I made it, and now I'm out where the Snowpeak portal is. But I don't actually want the Snowpeak portal, so I'm doing this LJA, and check out the minimap here. See how the blue triangle moved to a different place right before I voided out? That was Link hitting a trigger to update his respawn point to where the game wants him to respawn if you void out during snowboarding, which is past the portal, so now I've skipped it. And unfortunately, it is slow to go on a spiritual journey with Yeto, so I had to decline. So I skipped that warp portal for fairly obvious reasons. I would never need to use it, and it's skippable. But there is a big side effect of that, which you can see on the screen already, which is that opening the portal is what dispels the fog in this area. And it's pretty thick. You're supposed to be able to see Yeto through this entire cutscene. So to get down to Snowpeak Ruins, I'll have to do what we call blind snowboarding, which isn't a perfect name for it. You can still see a little bit, but it's kind of tricky. And I will be going for the shortcut as well, which seems harder, but actually isn't. I don't know, maybe I'm just used to it. Aside from trying to optimize my pathing here, I'll also be spending a lot of time in the air, jumping and sometimes quick spinning to stay up. Link usually has around 60 to 70 speed on the slope, but jumping often gets that speed up to the full 70, and then it doesn't vary at all as long as Link's in the air. Another consequence of leaving the fog here is that the rupees on the treetops coming up on my right don't spawn, so unfortunately I can't get those. And the ice wall obstacles that are around this area also appear not to be here, but they actually are. I can still run into them, they're just invisible. Just one more bend here, and then I'll start jumping to lock Link's angle so I don't accidentally go over the railings. Here I'll skip a Midna text trigger that's in the obvious open area there. It's kind of slow to skip, but it's still a second faster than getting the text. While it is true that Snowpeak represents a pretty big detour on this route, if there were a way to skip the ball and chain, then I could skip all of this. I would miss Snowpeak if it were out of the route. It's just a fun dungeon. Nice little sequence of cool tricks back to back. So to start off, I've gone into this room completely ignoring Yetta because I can long jump attack across it. And from here I can claw shot up through this floor. There's no ceiling collision because this is a bombable floor, you're supposed to blow it up from the top. Here, yeah, I can't go for that, but I can do a backup floor clip just to get down to the bottom of this room. And with that, I'm already out to the courtyard. Here I'm trapped behind a locked door and I don't have a key, but I can do another one of those displacement clips like I did back in Lakebed to get past this door, since what's on the other side of it is part of this room and already loaded. I'm doing a different setup here because those cannonballs would be in the way if I did the same setup I did in Lakebed. Speaking of cannonballs, I didn't bring one with me to kill this freezer, but if I get in the corner, whoops, I'll have to try that again. If I take some damage to get some invincibility frames and then kind of B-attack into the freezer, then the freezer will push Link through the door, where I can then open the door from the other side to get to the mini-boss. Like I was saying before regarding boss key skips, you can't load into a new area just by getting past a door in this game. If you can still open the door from the other side like that, then no problem, but if you need a key for the door, you still need a key to open it from the other side. So here's my ball and chain. Don't be fooled by Darkhammer holding it, it's mine, I just lent it to him. But now I'd like it back. It's weird, nobody else wants to borrow my ball and chain. Can't imagine why. That was all I needed from Snowpeak, but since I'm here, I might as well grab some very convenient orange rupees, each worth 100. One of them is in the bubble in the suit of armor back here, and I'll try to side hop over the rupee to skip the text. And now I'll save warp so I can leave the dungeon and pick up my other orange rupee on the way out. And that reminds me, I haven't talked about the memory card situation yet. I'm sure some people were wondering about that. I've made maybe 5 or 6 saves so far this run, but there's only that one on the file select. What's going on there is that I'm using multiple memory cards, or technically one memory card with multiple partitions, and I'm swapping between those partitions between save warps. It's a way to save a very small amount of time over the course of the run. When I need to make a save, the fastest way to do that is to save on the slot that the cursor is already on, so I don't need to scroll up or down, and ideally to save on a slot that doesn't already have a file on it, because then I can just press A once instead of scrolling over to say, yes, I do want to overwrite my save. When we in the community were deciding to allow that, I was kind of mildly opposed to it. It kind of just feels like the time save is coming from something outside the game. But it's better than the call coming from inside the house. Not a big deal. Now that I have the ball and chain, I just have to beat those 4 dungeons to beat the game. Arbiter's Grounds, City in the Sky, Palace of Twilight, and Hyrule Castle. I'm headed to Arbiter's grounds first, so I'm going up to Aru to get the memo so I can get there. Here's another nice little optimization I found while I was working on the glitchless tasks. Instead of jump attacking up to the next area as human, I can just dash jump to the right as wolf. It's pretty obvious in hindsight, but nobody did that for a long time. How do you feel about climbing ladders? How do you feel about climbing ladders now? Have your feelings on climbing ladders changed in the past 18 seconds? There's my memo, and now I need to get back down, which I can do in a very silly looking way. Just pulled the ball and chain there so Link fell a little bit faster, and then I jump slashed to avoid Link's landing damage animation. If I'd wanted to, I could have just held up to auto roll and avoid damage, but I actually want to be taking damage here. My second death warp of the run is coming up in Arbiter's grounds, and that's just a convenient place to take an entire heart of damage. Let's see, I've got 271 rupees here, and remember I'll need 300 to pay Fire to fix the Sky Cannon later, so I'm going to grab a red rupee from Fire's cabin right now. And just jump attacking to skip the text there. I'll be getting at least 5 rupees in Arbiter's grounds, and ideally I'll get 5 more there to make it up to 300, but I sometimes forget to get that rupee, so we'll see. I'm sure you're on the edge of your seat. Dashing through the desert isn't too much more exciting than dashing through Lanayru Twilight or Midna's Desperate Hour was, but the beginning's kind of interesting. I am still trying to damage down. Ideally I'll be entering Arbiter's grounds on half a heart, though it's not a huge deal if I enter with more than that. So I'm going to be trying to take damage from these Moldorms, and if I line up with this one correctly then it should hit me, and I'll stop dashing here so that this one can hit me as well. There's a third Moldorm coming up, but I think when I did this run I hadn't figured out the strat yet. Yeah, I'm just dashing straight. So if I dashed around to the right a little bit, then the Moldorm would be much more likely to hit me. But not a big deal, I can just take a hit from an extra bomb. And now, I dash. The intended way for me to get through the wooden fencing that's blocking my path to Bulblin Camp right now is for me to kill one of those boar riders, mount the boar, and then ride the boar through the fencing. That's pretty slow though, so I'll use the ball and chain to break this tower instead. And then if I dash towards just the right place at the edge of the next fence, then I can clip right by it. Actually, I don't think it's even a clip, I think I'm just kind of squeezing between the wall and the fence. But getting through that tower was actually the entire reason that it mattered that I went to Snowpeak this early. If it weren't for that, then if I wanted to, I could have gone to Snowpeak right before Palace of Twilight, because I won't be using the ball and chain again until Zant. Now here in Bulblin Camp, the only thing I need to do is fight King Bulblin. That's the only way to open up the path to Arbiters. But I don't want to get the key. The key is way in the back of the camp. So I'm doing map glitch again instead, the same glitch that I used to get up to Snowpeak without voiding out. Conveniently, the trigger to start the King Bulblin fight extends infinitely upwards and downwards from the arena, so if I can just get on top of it or below it, then I'll be able to start the fight. I'm going with the below option here, so after a quick setup, I'm in position to LJA over to this out-of-bounds rock, and the ground here outside the camp walls doesn't actually have any collision, so I can jump attack straight through it towards the arena. Normally, Link would have voided out before hitting that trigger, but because I used map glitch, he can't. Are you prepared to witness King Bulblin's dance moves? Look at him go. Cutting the rug. Oops, guess he still needs a little practice. Maybe next time he can try something easier, like the chicken dance. Okay, fine, no chicken dance. How do you feel about the Macarena? The cha-cha slide? I'll think of something. Well, in the meantime, I'll be doing the use this boar to escape a fiery death dance. It's a really good one to know. Conveniently, just like the Howling Stone back in Snowpeak, dashing through these fences will trigger a load that still works during map glitch, and in fact disables map glitch. So that's over now. For this category, since I don't need the Poe out here, I'll be entering Arbiter's Grounds as human. It's a little bit faster to get through the first room as wolf, but it's just not worth the time it takes to transform twice. Now Arbiter's Grounds is going to be quite a bit faster than it was in my commentated run of this category from 2022, and it's even going to be faster than my commentated all dungeons run from under a year ago. There is some neat stuff coming up. Whoops. So the fastest way through this first room is going to be to claw shot here and navigate across the room like this using some auto rolls. Here's a nice little optimization too. I put the claw shot away by equipping the lantern over it, which I'll need in the next room, so that Link didn't automatically put the claw shot away slowly when he tried to pull the chain. Shoutouts to DF for that one. And then another tiny optimization coming up. You can't normally roll away from this chest, but if you turn towards it first, then you can fail it and pick up a skull by accident. Whoops. Shoutouts to Ace for that one. I blame my failure on Ace too. Just like I did with the claw shot, I'm going to equip the boots over the lantern now, so Link puts it away before the door. And now, Poes. The central puzzle in this dungeon is finding the 4 Poes scattered throughout and collecting their souls to relight these torches and open this big gate. For many years, we were able to skip one of the Poes because the gate really only checks for the souls from Poes 2 through 4. But in August of 2025, we finally found a way to skip all of the Poes by going around the gate. It was difficult and involved some RNG, and I explain it in my All Dungeons commentary. But with the discovery of displacement clips just 6 months later in February 2026, we now have a way through the gate that's much faster and much easier. I talked about this a little bit at the Faron gate at the beginning of the run. Another older way through this gate is the notorious rupee slide, where Link stares at a rupee for nearly 10 hours while the animation of holding the rupee up makes him slide through the gate very slowly. But with the help of this pot to give Link a push, I can do a displacement clip into the gate so Link is perfectly inside the wall. The gate has no ceiling collision underneath it, so I can't just jump out to the other side like I did in Lakebed or Snowpeak. But if I start a rupee slide from inside the gate instead of from outside of it, then that rupee slide will get Link through to the other side instantly. Well, here's my rupee, and there's the clip. That's it. Then, as I mentioned before, I was entering Arbiters with a little more health than I wanted, so I damage boosted into the load zone there to skip the animation of Link getting up. There's my final rupee to fill the wallet, and now I'm heading to the boss key early. That trick's pretty much always been done as wolf instead of human by bee attacking around the edge of the sand whirlpool, but it's faster to do it as human now since we enter... Was that? I think that fire bubble followed me all the way over here. That's funny. Yeah, it's faster to do it as human now, though you still have to climb out as wolf, unfortunately. Now I'm headed to Death Sword's room for the spinner, and this room is pretty cool in reverse if I do it right, but I missed the side hop there, unfortunately. There's still a little bit of parkour. No, I missed the auto roll. Okay, this is pretty clumsy. So I wanted to do a side hop off of that railing at the beginning. Oh no. And then here I'm trying to auto roll over the this little lip. Yeah, it's pretty awkward. Oh no. Okay, hopefully the next room goes better. Remember when I mentioned brake sliding, that technique TASes use to preserve speed that involves really complicated inputs? Well, if I do a simple version here without those complicated inputs, then I can make Link slide through the sand instead of getting stuck. And here I can skip the Stalfos if I position Link just right, and then climb up this step while dropping the skull. Then I can clip out of bounds and jump slash to this out of bounds collision to claw shot to this target. It's a really neat trick. The way that works is that Link completely ignores wall collision during a certain stepping animation. So I started stepping up out of the sand and then dropped the skull so that it pushed Link through the wall. So now I'm in Death Sword's room and I want to get the spinner, but there's a gate in the way. So you may be thinking, I'm just going to do another displacement clip through the gate. And that would be pretty nice, because it would mean I could skip waking Death Sword up and doing this first phase, but unfortunately it just doesn't quite work. This gate is like the Poe gate in that there's no ceiling collision underneath it, so I can't just jump through it. And I could, in theory, do the exact same thing that I did for the Poe gate, but there's nothing in this room that Link can collect and hold up to the camera like the blue rupee. The only thing in the pots in this room are hearts, which is why I just threw that pot away. I don't want to accidentally get some health while I'm preparing for a death warp. So I can't make use of a displacement clip here, but I can do the good old-fashioned super jump. This gate does not go all the way up. Death Sword skip is a pretty tricky one, so it's always nice to get that one first try. There's my spinner, and now I need to leave the room, but the door is still closed because I haven't defeated Death Sword. Don't try this at home, kids. Before the advent of Pogate skip, I would have just save warped after getting the spinner, which would bring Link to the dungeon entrance, and then I could just run through the Pogate again. I still could do that. I could do Pogate skip a second time. It is pretty fast, but it's something like 15 to 20 seconds slower than just backtracking, which is neat, because glitched speedruns never used to go through these rooms in this direction. Now you'll notice I'm doing spinner attacks onto the rails. That's a really small optimization. The spinner's, I guess, detection range for rails is a little bit larger when you're doing an attack, even though the spinner's speed doesn't actually change with the attack. I like this room a lot. There's some fun movement here that's a little precise, but like not too precise. And the entire room is on a cycle. At the end of the room, there are these 5 blade traps on 2 rails, and I'll need to get past them. And if I do all my movement well, which I have so far, yep, this looks good, then I can get through them without stopping at all. Just go straight to the door. As you can imagine, if I had messed up my movement earlier in the room, then that last set of rails could have gotten very messy. It's technically possible to skip this spinner socket, but it requires 6 hidden skills. Or it is actually possible with a displacement clip as well, but we don't have a fast setup for it. And also the only convenient rupee is a blue one, which I already have gotten the text for, so I couldn't use that again right now. This room is fun to watch on the minimap. Look at that brave little yellow triangle go. This spinner socket is technically skippable as well now, though it's much more difficult than skipping the previous one. Big Ben figured out a way to kind of side hop up the entire railing while throwing the boomerang. It's really interesting, and I hope it makes it into a task someday. But I don't think it's reasonable for a human to do. Something kind of interesting about Stallone's room that hopefully we can take advantage of someday is that just now I passed into an invisible trigger that closes the gate at the exit to the room. If there was some way of avoiding or disabling that trigger, then skipping Stratford would be as simple as entering this room and then leaving on the other side. Unfortunately, there's no known way to do that, and the trigger is kind of enormous, but who knows, maybe someday. For now though, I have another way of skipping the fight. Speedruns have regularly skipped Steelix since 2021, so even my last Commentated Any % run skipped it. But since the discovery of displacement clips, there's a new and faster strategy that I can use. This room is like Death Sword's room in that the gate has no ceiling collision beneath, so I can't jump under it, and there's nothing like a rupee that I can pick up to slide through the gate. But what this room does have is claw-shottable actors in the form of the stall troops. After a very careful setup here, I can do a glitch called Clawshot Actor Displacement, or CAD, to make the clawshot connect with the stall troop while Link is falling off a short ledge, which makes the stall troop come to Link instead of the other way around as intended. Now normally the spinner doesn't move fast enough to get Link into a wall for a displacement clip, but it has a whopping 60 speed in this room. So from the right position, I was able to get off the spinner frame perfectly to clip inside the gate, then clawshot the stall troop at just the right angle to pull Link the rest of the way through. And you know it's a good Stallard skip if it's over before I even have a chance to explain it. Just like the case with Pogate skip, that version of Stallard skip is both faster and much easier than the old version. And as a fun little side effect of that development, Arbiter's Grounds is now a completely pacifist dungeon. I didn't kill a single enemy, I only killed Link. That bomb, on the other hand, will kill an enemy. My pacifist days are behind me. I just need to open this portal so I can come back here quickly after beating City in the Sky. And one of the Shadow Beasts is going to spawn right where I dropped that bomb. The game normally tries to prevent you from warping away before raising the mirror here so you don't miss the big cutscene and fail to spawn Ashe and Snowpeak. But the trigger for the game to do that is beating Star-Lord, and I didn't do that, so I can just warp away. And even if I had beaten Stalwart, I could have done a trick with the map to warp away anyway. But I'm now headed to City in the Sky, and going there, as we all know, requires filling in the Ancient Sky Book, which requires getting the Ancient Sky Book from Impaz, meaning doing Ilia's Memory Quest, meaning beating Temple of Time, meaning going through the Sacred Grove, which means beating Snowpeak Ruins. I don't know how I'm going to do all of this in under an hour. So it's probably better if I just don't. The Sky Cannon is in the Sanctuary basement. Let's see what I can do. Well, the first thing I'll do is run straight. Very clean room. But the second thing I'll do is what's called a transform clip. There aren't too many of these that are useful, at least for now, but this one is very useful. If I get in just the right place at just the right angle here, then I can transform and just squeeze past that owl statue, skipping all of those things that I listed a minute ago. Now I can't just say yes to warp here because I haven't gotten rid of Shad because he's not there to get rid of, but I can still use the map to warp the cannon. And that's the big reason why I went out of my way to get map warping before Eldin Twilight. So that's a pretty big sequence break. That saves something like an hour for this run, more than any other individual skip, and all I did was transform. So now I've just got to pay Fire my 300 rupees so I can enter the dungeon. There is a way to skip paying Fire, but it ends up being slower. If you play the game in French, and talk to Fire about the cannon but don't have enough rupees, and then talk to him a second time, he'll fix the cannon anyway because of a bug with one of his text boxes. But between the time it takes to do that and French text boxes being slower overall for the slow text in this category, for an ideal run of this route, French is still slower than German, which is the optimal language. It's probably slower than English as well, but I don't know for sure. They're all fairly similar. I personally only have an American copy of the game, so I can only play in English anyway, and it's kind of a luxury that just doesn't matter very much. Fire is a great motivational speaker, turning my canton into a cannon. This section of the run is unfortunately a little dense on cutscenes, but once I get started in City in the Sky, it's going to be pretty fun. Fun fact, when Uku sees Argarok here, she's going to say, "Eek!" In German, she says, "Ah!" In French, she says, "Ooh!" And in Japanese, she just says, exclamation point. Which, to be fair, is probably how I would react seeing Argarok. Alright, I get to start playing again. First things first, good, I got the good wind RNG. The timing for the wind starting to blow in these outdoor areas that have intermittent blowing wind is random. There are just two options for when it starts blowing, and with the one that I got, I was able to make it all the way to those stairs first, so it basically didn't affect me at all. This room is an unusual one in that the strategy for the Wii version is actually faster than the strategy for the GameCube version. I'm doing boomerang long jump attacks, which is pretty fast, but on the Wii version, when you're aiming a first-person item, Link can't fall off of ledges, so you can get right on the edge on the left side and claw shot straight across to the vines. Now the way I'm opening this door looks nonsensical, I'm just going to transform back to human in this next room. But remember how I said in Arbiter's Grounds, how if I could bypass the trigger right outside the boss door, then I could just run straight through Stallard's room because the gate wouldn't close? Well, it's the same situation here, but in this case, the trigger is actually small enough that I can open the door without touching it, if I just open the door from as far away as I can as Wolf. If only the front part of Wolf Link touches the trigger, then it doesn't count, and then the trigger isn't active while he's crossing through the door. The trigger in this case is for the big fan at the top of that central room. That fan is meant to be turned off from above after you've done the second half of the dungeon, but I'll be able to go through it from below, and that'll save a lot of time. That LJ is just slightly faster than claw-shotting the vines, and there's no RNG to it, whereas if I claw-shotted the vines, then Link might grab with one hand, or he might grab with two. If he grabs with two, he can climb immediately, but if he only grabs with one, Then he goes through this 32-frame dangling animation that's just over a second. Unfortunately, the faster option, the two-handed grab, is a 30% chance anytime Link grabs something like that, and the slower option, the one-handed grab, is a 70% chance. We'll probably see examples of both in this dungeon. There's my small key, and now I can head over to the other side of the dungeon to use the small key and get the double claw shots. Now it is actually possible to skip this small key even with only the equipment that any percent has, and it's even been done by a human at this point. Spicy Juice came up with a whole setup for it and did it in a low percent run, after Big Ben found some new clawshot actor displacement tech that made it much more feasible. Oh, more on that in a second. There's a cutscene trigger right at the top of the stairs that I want to skip, so I could just go around it. Anyway, it would be nice to someday be able to skip that small key in any percent, but although the trick has been done, and you should definitely check out the new— what was that bonk? And you should definitely check out the new low percent record to see it, the setup is still so involved that I don't think it's possible for a human to save time with it. The reason it made it into low percent is that it skips an item, the small key, and in low percent speedruns, removing items is of higher value than saving time. In this room I get to face off against the most fearsome enemy in the game, the Baba Serpent. That wasn't too bad. They're just a pain. But now I'm extending the bridge. I didn't get to talk about this on the other side because I was talking about other stuff. Despite what the A prompt implies, I don't really need to mash very hard to extend the bridge optimally. A rate of around 4 presses a second will do. And then here I can get off the spinner early and get a roll into the cutscene. Technically there's time enough for 2 rolls, but if I got off the spinner early enough to do that, I would risk getting off the spinner before the bridge had finished extending, and that would mean that the bridge would retract fully, no matter whether I got back on the spinner or not. And that would cost around 30 seconds and make me feel very silly. This wing of the dungeon has some neat displacement clips in it. Speedruns used to go right from this door and LJA across a gap to skip the puzzle in this room, but now I can completely ignore the puzzle and go out this door instead. Through this door is the room right before the mini-boss, and of course you're not supposed to be able to get to the mini-boss this way, but there's a gate here with ceiling collision underneath it, and you know what that means. Now I do have to do kind of a special setup for this one. The game stores Link's coordinates as floating point numbers, and those values are so high on this map that there's a lot of precision lost. But I could just roll stab through, and then I had to time a jump attack on the other side, nice Baba, to make sure that Link actually landed on that ledge. That's not the easiest thing, but it's not too bad either. It's a 3-frame window to start the jump attack, otherwise he falls too far and misses the platform. So that displacement clip skipped 3 whole rooms, saved over a minute, and this displacement clip is going to skip pulling a single switch. I like this one though. It still saves a few seconds because the cutscene after you pull the switch is kind of long. And then it looks like I was about to jump straight down to the double claw shots chest and skip Aralphos, which, to be clear, I am going to do. I am going to skip Aralphos right now. But unfortunately the trigger for the fight extends just above the chest, so I can't jump straight down to it. Now that I have the claw shots, I can make my way to the boss, of course getting the boss key on the way. And the fastest way to do that is just going to be the save warp from here. This save warp is a little strange because save warping in a dungeon almost always takes Link back to the dungeon entrance, but as you'll see in a second, this one's going to take me back to the small key chest instead. This happens because I skipped that cutscene trigger on the bridge after getting the key. In that cutscene, Argrok is supposed to destroy the bridge, and the game doesn't want you to miss that inadvertently by happening to save and quit between getting the key and seeing the cutscene. So save warping between the two puts you back here, but the cutscene trigger isn't active anymore because I got the claw shots already, so I can just go straight across the bridge this time. This spawn point is a little more convenient than the dungeon entrance for getting back to the main room, but it's not much more convenient. Most of the time I saved by skipping the cutscene was just not watching the cutscene. Oh, there was a 2-handed grab there. That's some good luck. I've got 5 RNG grabs left in this dungeon. Let's see how my luck holds. So this is where I get to take advantage of having avoided the fan trigger. It's not on at the top of the room right now. Nice, 2-handed grab again. Can I get a 3rd? No, unfortunate. So yeah, I can just claw shot straight up here. And to get up to the boss key, I can do a pretty neat trick here. If I claw shot onto the grate in just the right place, then I can shoot the second claw shot right past the edge of the grate and hit the claw shot target on the ceiling, which just skips going outside and claw shotting up. Ah! Good dodge. As I was saying in Lakebed, the other dungeons and boss keys are pretty much all on the way to the bosses, so now I can just jump down and go straight to the north wing. The intended way to cross this next room involves pulling a switch in the room I just left to activate the fans, but with the power of the Boomerang LJA, I will not need to do that. To get onto the fans, I'll just need to claw shot onto the top of their grates from above. That makes Link grab the ledge on top. Unfortunately with one hand that time. Maybe I can get a two-handed grab here. Nice. And then from here, I can do a couple LJAs across to the other side. It used to be much more common to see this as a double LJA done on the other side of those fans. I think that method is faster in theory, but because it involves some more precise aiming, I found the two methods to be equal in speed, at least the way I was doing them, and the other method has a higher risk of voiding out. Speaking of faster alternatives, there are some faster ways to get up the fan tower than what I'm about to do. You can see one of the faster ways in 100% and all dungeons runs where we have a bomb arrow and can shoot the top switch from the very bottom to make the last fan a bit faster. But even in any percent where I don't have the bow, there are two faster paths that I could take here. They're just extremely difficult to do, and they only save a couple of seconds. But this path is still fun. A couple of fans from now, I'm going to have to try to shoot pretty quickly to get onto the top fan before I rotate too far away from it. Here goes. Oh no, I missed! That's alright, I was fast enough that I had a second try. And while I'm waiting for this fan to rotate far enough so I can claw shot to the boss door, I'm aiming at a specific point on the wall, so that when I claw shot here, Link will fall straight down instead of kind of grabbing and turning around. After Link comes through the boss door, there will be a one-framer. Hopefully I'll get a roll there. Ah, unfortunate. That's okay, that saves under a second. But now I'm just going to the very edge of this platform so I can try to claw shot the very top of the vines up here and skip climbing up the vines slowly. And I even got a two-handed grab. How nice. I needed to be careful there because if I had claw shotted the very edge of the vines, then Link would have gone into his aiming the second claw shot mode instead of his climbing mode, and I would have been forced to just drop and void to try again. I'm just operating a skull delivery service and a bonk delivery service while I'm waiting for Argarok to fly around the arena. There's nothing I can do to speed that up. But here, I'm going to make sure not to claw shot onto Argarok's tail on the first possible frame. That leads to a semi-soft lock that's very funny, but also very slow. While Argarok was falling, I oriented the camera in a certain way so that after this cutscene I can just hold down and immediately be aiming at one of the pillars, because I want to claw shot up onto the pillar immediately, making Argarok start another attack cycle instead of flying away first. That allowed me to claw shot back on right away, and now phase 1 is over. I have to warn you, Argarok does a pretty scary roar during this cutscene. It might even make you say question mark exclamation point. Semicolon apostrophe. Wait, that's not right. Well, that's one long cutscene for a man, and now Link will take a giant leap for mankind. If I hadn't voided out, then Argarok would have flown around the arena again. Now the main technique for going fast here in Phase 2 is what's called the Flame Cancel. On each cycle, Argarok is going to rear back and roar and spew some flames. Normally the flames last for a little while. Whoops, bad aim. But if I do a Flame Cancel, which, yeah, this time I'm going to do it from this first P-hat, which just means sinking down low enough that Argarok thinks Link has fallen, and then claw-shotting around to the back. Then I can shorten the flames by quite a bit. There's one of 3 cycles down. Hopefully on this second cycle I can demonstrate a slightly faster flame cancel, Because I had bad aim there, I wasn't able to do this on the first cycle, but ideally I would shoot the claw shot to get onto the P-hat right before Argarok roars. Yeah, just like that. So now I have time to get to the second P-hat before Argarok starts spewing the flame. And that's a little bit faster because now after the cancel, I only have to claw shot to 2 more P-hats instead of 3 to get around to the back. To be clear, I did have time to do that on the first cycle, but when Argarok roars is determined by where Link ends up on the pillar and how long it takes him to get there. So because my aim was shaky, I didn't have a good sense of when Argarok was going to roar, and clawshotting to the P-hat too early costs way more time than getting the second P-hat flame cancel saves. Now for this third cycle, the flame cancel is going to look a little bit different. What Argarok does on this cycle is start spewing flame like normal, but then halfway through it turns around to try to catch you off guard. Thankfully, it always does this at the same time, so I won't be caught off guard, and I can just start sinking around now to get a flame cancel right after Argarok starts spewing the flame on that side. I should at least mention that there was a faster strategy I could have gone with for cycles 2 and 3, but it's so risky that I don't think anybody does it in runs. I certainly don't, and it doesn't save very much time. After each time I've knocked Argarok down, if I start claw-shotting up the pillars so quickly that Link gets above Argarok while Argarok is still rising back up into the air, then Argarok will roar to start its attack right then instead of waiting to get up to the top. You can see this early roar strat in recent TASes, but it makes the flame cancels afterwards pretty awkward, and since Link can only claw-shot to the P-hats from near the top of the pillars, you have to claw-shot up pretty fast after the roar before the flame comes out. Much like in real life, getting burnt to a crisp is not good. This heart container is the second and final one that I'll get in the run. Some runners choose to skip the one that I got in Lakebed, but I don't think anybody skips this one. I took a heart of damage jumping down to Aralphos, intentionally took that heart of damage during the Argarok fight, voiding out to prevent it from flying around the arena, and I'm just about to take 2 more hearts of damage exiting City in the Sky. If you add all that up, I'm dead. And while I could have gone out of my way for individual recovery hearts, getting that heart container is so fast, it's definitely worth it. Oh no. That must have been like 1 frame early. I was pressing start to try to skip the cutscene, but the cutscene hadn't started yet. Here's where I take those 2 hearts of damage. I'm just going to jump slash as soon as I can, so that Link lands on the bridge instead of landing in the water like he's supposed to. The nearest place to get out of the water is annoyingly far away. But now I'm headed directly to Palace of Twilight with my 1 mirror shard. Again, the game only cares about the final mirror shard, so all I had to do was beat City in the Sky to get here. This cutscene will automatically transform me to human, and then I will transform right back because it's faster to enter Palace as Wolf. When Link walks out of the portal, he does it very slowly as human. Oh no. Yeah, I gotta angle a little more than that to avoid the bonk. Palace is the one dungeon that still has no massive skips inside it. I'll be visiting every room and getting every key, with the only glitches being a few LJAs that save a second or 2 each. But that doesn't mean it's boring. Far from it, in my opinion. There are still a ton of small ways to save time in every room. Case in point, actually, I'm dashing towards this Twilight and keeping the camera to the left to shorten the camera pan relative to what it would be if I had dashed more directly towards this door. Admittedly, that one's not the most exciting, but in every room I'll be talking about all the little optimizations that I'm going for. I am a palace enjoyer. This first room just has a single Zant head, and it'll start bobbing up and down once it spawns, so if I kind of wedge Link beneath it in a certain position, and release my Midna charge attack at the right time, then I can hit it twice with the same attack for an instant kill. And of course, before the chest spawn cutscene started, I positioned Link so I can just press A right after the cutscene to open the chest. That'll be a theme through all of the rooms in this dungeon. Now I can quickly aim up to this clawshot target, and fall with the iron boots on, so he falls a little bit faster. Now I'm transforming here manually because if I used the fog in the next room to transform instead, then I would get some extra Midna text afterwards and it would be a little slower. Now, ideally here I get a front spawn. No, it's a back spawn. It's not a big deal. But I can double hit with a targeted dashed B attack there and then finish it off with a charge attack. That Zant head doesn't bob up and down like the first one did, so I couldn't do the quick kill there. There's only one other Zant head that I fight as Wolf that does do the bobbing thing, but it ends up being faster to do a different strategy for that one anyway. Now the spawn location that I got for that Zant head is kind of nice in that it made it easy to get to the chest before the cutscene, so I didn't have to move afterwards. And now in this room I can just side hop up the chest and jump attack up to this platform, instead of using the clawshot targets. But to finish my thought, there were 4 places in that room that the Zant head could have spawned, it's just random. And in theory at least, the front spawn is the fastest because you get to the head as early as possible to attack it, and then you still have enough time to get to the chest before the cutscene. It's just a little more difficult than for any of the other spawns. Now here's my first Phantom Zant fight. Similarly, Phantom Zant will spawn at one of 7 locations around the room. And if I'm smart, I'm wearing headphones so I can hear where it spawns. Yep, I seemed to know that. And I can do a quick 3 cycle here, just by doing the right amount of damage on each cycle so he doesn't start warping away. And that was a really nice one. It's always nice to get a center spawn. The hardest part about that fight is not failing quick spins. Gotta do 7 quick spins, and failing any of them means an extra cycle. Technically, it is possible to one-cycle Phantom Zant. It's basically chaining 4 cycles, where the first attack of each new cycle has to be done frame perfectly, right as Phantom Zant tries to warp away. It's very difficult and very risky, because if you miss basically any of the attacks, then Phantom Zant will start warping all around the area, and that takes forever. Anyway, this hand cutscene activated when the soul got close enough to the socket, but I had thrown it towards the socket instead of just running towards it, so I was able to overlap the cutscene of the hand rising with the cutscene of these stairs rising. And that little slide that I did while clawshotting the soul is what's called an L slide. It's called that because it involves pressing L on the controller. It's just a way of getting Link to move a little bit while the soul is coming back to him, so there's less distance to run to the door. Actually, there was also an L slide earlier in the run during Stallard's skip. That's how I got the clawshot actor displacement. I just didn't have a chance to talk about it right then. Here I can throw the soul in the socket, take that, and then stand at the top of the stairs so I don't need to climb the stairs. And here I'll do another L slide as I clawshot this soul. If I do it in a certain way, then I can prevent the squeebles up here from spawning, which, yeah, the way that works is that if you L slide into the squeebles activation trigger before you're carrying the soul, then they won't activate. But what I did there was L slide into it and then accidentally run out of it a little bit, but it basically doesn't matter at all. I didn't even need to go out of my way to avoid them. I will need to go slightly out of my way to avoid these guys though. So there's my first soul, and now I'll just need the one from the other wing to get the light sword so I can carry on through the rest of the dungeon to Zant. I think the most likely sequence break to be found for this dungeon someday is a way to get the light sword early, maybe by getting 1 soul and getting it to count twice somehow. It's been investigated thoroughly, and there is kind of a lead on it, but it's still not known to be possible. A glitch that gives us small keys would also be a pretty big deal in a dungeon that has 7 of them. Oh, gotta interrupt myself here. I rolled onto this platform so it would start rising during the cutscene, and because of that, I can just barely make it across this gap with an LJA to skip the rest of the platform ride, which is pretty slow. But yeah, I was gonna say, one other thing that people have considered is a way to skip the light sword, but that one has a bunch of obstacles, and it's probably less likely than finding a way to skip Palace entirely, which is also currently not possible, obviously. Now this room, a lot of runners, including myself, call Stupid Room. Affectionately? No, not affectionately. There are so many ways that this room can go wrong, and it can cost a lot of time. But it didn't go wrong, and it didn't cost a lot of time. It looks easy when it's done well, but it is kind of tricky to make it across those platforms cleanly, and there are 5 possible spawn locations for that Zant head, so you have to react pretty quickly. This room has some shadow beasts, and just like with any other shadow beasts, I can't leave one alive, or they'll revive. So I'm stunning these 2 with the boomerang so they'll follow me over to the other one, and then I can get all 3 at once. Thankfully, there's no Midna text for getting transformed by the fog in this room. This Zant head is the other one that bobs up and down, but it'll make more sense for me to kill it this way so Link is launched towards these other Zant heads that'll spawn, and I can kill these pretty quickly with some nice double hits. And the small key chest that'll spawn is in an upper alcove, so if I'm quick here, I can clawshot up to this target before the cutscene starts, and then when the cutscene ends, I can claw shot straight up to the ceiling. Well, not my finest aim. Can I get this though? No, not quite. If I'd timed that claw shot just right, then I could have made it over to the wall without aiming in first person. Speaking of awkward claw shotting, this shot is a little awkward to set up. I feel like that shot isn't really intended, but it sure is possible, and it sure is fast. This will be my second Phantom Zant fight for the second soul, and while it's technically a little bit different from the first fight because the room is slightly smaller so Phantom Zant spawns a little bit closer to Link, it's basically the same thing. The fight strategy is identical. No! I failed a quick spin. So I'm gonna have to do 4 cycles here. But thankfully I didn't panic and do 2 quick spins even after I had failed one, because again that would make Zant teleport around the room. I admit that feels like a way larger time loss when it's happening than it does watching it back, but it is pretty annoying. Another small difference about this room is how the hand cutscene triggers. It's going to trigger as soon as I get the soul a little ways away from it. So I had to make sure to claw shot the soul from close enough by that the cutscene didn't trigger while it was still being pulled by the claw shot, because if that had happened, the soul would have just fallen to the ground. Then here I can sword drop the soul and time a roll stab onto this platform to skip going around to the stairs on the sides. And there's that L slide once again to finish the room. In contrast to Stupid Room, I call this room Run Straight Room. Can you figure out why? That's right, it's because we always put on George Strait's hit song Run when we get to this room. You guessed it. Reverse Stupid Room is thankfully less stupid than not Reverse Stupid Room, though there is a stupid jump I could do here. I could have made it over to that second platform before waiting out the cycle, and while it's not that hard to do, it's pretty risky. Now I'll just send these keys on a tour of the room so they don't bother me. Welcome back. How did you enjoy your tour? That'll be it for my tour of this wing. Now I just need to bring the soul to the center and get the light sword. Now between this door closing and the cutscene of the Twilight, there's going to be a one-framer, and I'll try to throw or drop the soul on it. Nice, I got the throw. That just means that I can roll over to this platform instead of running with the soul, and start it rising a little sooner. That'll teach you. After the light sword text here, there will be another one-framer. Nice, got that one too. That's another one for the camera pan, saved 3 frames. Between this slope and the next one, I'm just going to run a little bit to get Link back up to full speed. These slopes are so steep that even if you do chain rolls frame perfectly, which I didn't the entire time, you still lose some speed. This is another room where I unfortunately won't be going for the perfectly optimal strategy, which is to do a super jump off of a keys to skip raising the stairs. It's difficult to do quickly, it's partially RNG dependent, and at a maximum it saves about 2 seconds, so it's just not worth it. Instead, I will try to throw these 2 souls into the sockets from pretty near the top of the stairs, so I can throw them both. Oh, I was trying to throw that one before the cutscene started, so I'll have to adjust my angle a little bit. But I at least managed to roll partway across the room before the stairs rose. Now if I aim decently, I can get a heart from this keys for free while I'm waiting on the platform. That shot is actually pretty easy for how cool it looks. Now I can shorten this platform ride just a little bit with a boomerang LJA, and what's annoying about LJAs like that one is that I had to make 2 targets on the same wall and just kind of hope that the boomerang went out of bounds in between them so I could get the LJA with the boomerang over the out of bounds void. Usually the boomerang cooperates and goes out of bounds, but occasionally it doesn't, and for the next LJA in this room it's hard to react to whether the boomerang goes out of bounds or not, and it also costs a lot of time to fail the LJA and fall all the way down. So I'm going to try to buffer this one by pulling the item wheel when the boomerang should be out of bounds to see whether it actually is or not before I press A. Yep, looks good. Like I said, most of the time it goes out of bounds, but it's just not worth the risk of assuming it's going to. This is the room with the boss key that you probably missed in your casual playthrough, and it's also got a bunch of Zant heads that I need to kill for a small key. What works out to be fastest is riding this light platform to the first Zant head, then voiding out, getting the boss key, and then finishing off the rest of the Zant heads. Now while I'm waiting on the platform, I'll do this little setup. Oh, well, maybe I won't do this little setup. I normally go for an LJA to the Zant head platform, but I guess I'm not going for it here. That's pretty unusual. Maybe in a run right before this one I failed this LJA or something, and I just didn't trust myself. Because this LJA saves about 2 seconds and costs something like a minute to fail. It is pretty risky. And it is a little trickier than it looks, because the whole area that I just voided out in doesn't actually count as a void for boomerang LJA purposes, because there's floor collision down below it. Anyway, I just dispersed the fog with a light sword spin attack, and now I can claw shot up to the boss key. If I aim reasonably well here, which it looks like I am, then I'll be able to kill the 3 Zant heads down below before they despawn. If I had aimed really quickly, then I could have killed this far Zant head before it got its attack out, but I think my first claw shot was a little slow for that. Wouldn't it be nice if I could quick spin? Just one more small key to go. And you may have noticed that there were, I think, at least 2 hearts there on the ground that I could have gotten, but by this point in the dungeon, health isn't really a concern. The next room is safe, and I can fill back up on health without wasting any time at all, either in the room before Zant or during the Zant fight itself. This room can seem a little complicated, but the gist is that there's a platform cycle at the top of the room that I want to make, and should make easily. And I want the final Zant head to respawn as soon as possible once I get to where it is, so to make it spawn as soon as possible, I'll be trying to kill the first Zant head as soon as possible. Which works out nicely, because the whole strategy summarizes to go fast. So I spawn camped those shadow beasts, and now I'm going to jump to this invisible platform before it starts appearing. Now I can LJA to this platform, and I buffered that again just in case the boomerang didn't go out of bounds. Here with a little setup, I can LJA to this platform as well, skipping the platform with the Baba on it, which is pretty nice, because sometimes the Baba just decides to knock Link down and there is nothing you can do about it. Then I also just did a vertical angle setup for this claw shot, which is totally unnecessary. I really could have just aimed, but might as well, I had the time. That's what's happening, by the way, when I go into and out of first person a bunch like that. If I do it in a certain way, then Link's vertical angle, where he's aiming up and down, changes in a predictable way. But I've just made the platform cycle handily, and now I can just wait on the Zant head. And I didn't have to wait very long because I killed the first one so quickly. Pretty good room. There's my final small key of the dungeon, and now I can do a careful LJA from this platform to make it to the door a little earlier. This is another one that costs a lot of time to fail, but at least in this case it's completely consistent. I don't have to rely on the boomerang going out of bounds. In this room I get to be mean to some shadow beasts. These shadow beasts often drop hearts, so I'm probably going to refill on health in this room. I can also try to get a fairy from the pot on the left, but it's just random. Nope, no fairy today. That's fine. Hey Zant, what sound does a philosopher make? Oh, I guess you've heard that one before. Gotta get some new material. Oh, check out this text box. Pretty normal looking text box, right? For some reason, if you're playing on French, that text box takes about 2 seconds to clear. I have no idea why that might be. Zant just kind of hangs out on the throne until he's sure you've read his message. And that's part of the reason that French is still slow, even with the canon glitch. So here in the Morpheel phase, I'll just need to knock Zant down for 2 cycles and finish a combo on him on each cycle. Most sword attacks don't do very much damage to Zant, but certain ones, including the 4th part of a combo, always force him to move on to the next cycle. So I was trying to start my combos early because I didn't care whether the first 3 moves hit him, I just wanted the last one to connect. On this phase, the spawn RNG matters a little more. Yeah, I got an extra spawn, it's unfortunate. And ideally here I'll get a 1 cycle, if I can ever get through. Nice. That's pretty much like that Phantom Zant 1 cycle that I described before, but thankfully it's only 2 cycles chained together, so there's only 1 precise input, and actually it was a 2-frame window for it instead of frame perfect. Basically, I just delayed finishing a combo until Zant was just about to warp away, so that it would count as part of the next cycle. Now I've just done a very rough position setup, just want to be as close as possible without getting blown away by the bubbles. And unfortunately there's no way to 1 cycle on this phase. But here's where I'll use that water bomb glitch again to refill my air meter, since I still don't have the Zor armor. This fight is much easier to manage than the Morpheel fight though, there's no RNG at all. All I have to do is start swimming towards Zant around the right time to make him spawn in the correct head. He spawns in whichever head is farthest from Link at a certain time. So I'm just waiting here until his nose pops out, and now I know he's going to be in the one right in front of me. Now without Zor armor, it's pretty difficult to get him before he starts attacking. So ideally I'll sink down and grab him right as he finishes attacking, since the attacks would interrupt the claw shot. No, I didn't get the L slide. There's a cool underwater L slide you can do there. I don't know if it even saves any time. Now I've said that the reason I needed to get the ball and chain at all was for the Blazetta phase of Zant, but that's not the only use I'll put it to. I can also use it in this phase to knock him off a pillar, and it'll get some use in Hyrule Castle as well. There was also no 1 cycle for that phase, by the way. Only the first 2 phases have 1 cycles. And I don't even go for the one on the Diababa phase because it's really awkward and it saves very little time over the 2 cycle. This phase is tricky to do fast because just like in the Diababa phase, I don't care whether the first 3 slashes of the combo hit Zant. I only care about the 4th part. So ideally, I would start my combo really early while he's not even vulnerable yet, and then hit him with that 4th part as soon as he becomes vulnerable. But he's hopping around and I've got ice physics to contend with as well. So I do my best with that, but yeah, like that, it's usually safest just to wait until he's vulnerable. Since if I had actually slashed him when he wasn't vulnerable yet, then the sword would have bonked off of him, interrupting my combo and probably letting him get away. This last phase is the same in terms of combos, but I've got some easy choreography this time. So I can just hit him with the 4th part of that attack, 4th part of that attack, spin attack to deflect his spin attack, and finish 1 last combo. The Zant Heart container is one that no runner gets, outside of maybe their first ever run. Filling up on health during the Zant fight was very easy and didn't cost any time, and Hyrule Castle is just not that dangerous. Speaking of which, Hyrule Castle is where I'm headed next. Having beaten Zant, I can now enter North Castletown to start the cutscene where Midna shows off her hat that's so cool it destroys the barrier. Just like on my way in, I'll want to transform to Wolf before I get to the portal, so Link doesn't do a slow walk afterwards. And I meant to transform to Wolf right after the load, but I guess I stopped pressing Z early by accident, and got a roll instead. Whoops. Here's my second and final postman skip of the run. I'll just use the posts on the bridge as a visual cue for where to stop, and boomerang LJA right over the trigger. This will be my first time entering Central Castletown in the run, and it's pretty tough to move through optimally because it's very laggy, it's crowded, and it's got this fixed camera, which the other areas of Castletown also have, but it's tougher to move through this circular area with it than it is to move through the linear areas. I know I've mentioned this before in at least one run commentary, and it still hasn't happened yet, but this cutscene is skippable with a very TAS-only trick that involves alternating between pressing A and B every single frame for a minute or so. I feel confident saying it'll never be done by a human, at least with that method, but I think it works out in the route for the any % task that Big Ben is currently working on. I'm sure that'll still be a while, but it'll be very cool to see when it does happen. The glitch allows you to save warp mid-cutscene, which clears the rest of the cutscene. And although it takes some time to set up, so it's not fast to do for most other cutscenes, it is for this one since it's the longest unskippable cutscene in the run, and the save warp spawn location is pretty convenient. Actually, sorry, I take it back. I'm spreading misinformation. The Master Sword cutscene is slightly longer than this one, but it would never make sense to use that trick for the Master Sword cutscene. It just requires too many things that you would never have before the Master Sword. Alright, time for my final dungeon. There it is. Take a gander. Never mind. Gander opportunity ended. Hyrule Castle is full of places where Link gets trapped inside a barrier with some number of enemies and has to kill them to escape. Most of those barriers are skippable, including this one, though I won't be skipping it because unfortunately the notches on my controller are really bad for the best known setup. But this is only slightly slower, and is pretty much unfailable. I will, however, skip the second barrier, which is extremely easy because the cutscene of the barrier forming around Link is skippable, so I can just skip it and then roll out of the barrier before it forms. Now, I'm not going to move super optimally here just because I need to wait for the gate to open anyway. But now I can head over to King Bulblin's gate, which I could skip with the displacement clip if I wanted to, but I've timed it and it's slower than opening the gate, which is pretty unfortunate because if this gate stayed closed, then when King Bulblin tries to ride away at the end of the fight, he would get stuck on it. It's not a soft lock, the cutscene would still end, it just looks funny. But there I roll stabbed into the cutscene trigger to overlap King Bulblin falling with the barrier cutscene. And I was going for a one cycle there, but I mistimed the jump attack so it missed. That's okay, this fight is pretty quick anyway. That one cycle is really annoying. It can fail in a lot of unexpected ways. All that was for a small key, and I had the choice of 2 small keys here. I could have gotten the one in the graveyard instead, since there are 3 keys in the dungeon and I only need 2 of them. The graveyard key is slightly faster for a TAS, but that involves doing a very difficult LJA bomb boost setup list to go fast, and that's just not feasible for a human. Now after this cutscene is one of the most important one-framers in the run. I want to skip some Midna text. Oh, I missed it. This costs around 6 seconds. And that's another unfortunate one like in Lanayru. There really isn't a good cue for it, so I just had to mash. But now I'm just save warping to get back to the dungeon entrance. The plan was to backflip on that one framer so I could save warp mid-air before Link landed and the text came up. I'm going to skip the barrier in this room pretty similarly to how I skipped the other barrier, but this time I need to be airborne when I trigger the cutscene. Oh, paused early. There we go. If Link had been on the ground, then he would have automatically started walking towards the center of the room, but since he was in the air, he couldn't start walking, and that gave me time to skip the cutscene. Next up is the Dark Nut, and I can put my ball and chain to use again here. If you've ever seen a 100% run, you'll know that this barrier is also skippable, but the method that exists for doing that requires 6 hidden skills, so it just doesn't work out for this category. There goes the armor. Now I can deflect the sword with a little side hop, get him from behind, and then finish him off with the ball and chain. Now I'll get in position so I can throw the boomerang to extinguish the torch right after the cutscene ends. I know it looks like I didn't aim at the torch there, but during this cutscene Link kind of turns a little bit to look at the chest spawning, and after the lineup that I did, that makes him face the torch. Oddly enough, as far as Hyrule Castle goes, this torch puzzle is one of the things that's changed the most since I commentated a run of this category in 2022. I'm going for a completely different solution here that's not really supposed to be possible, but it barely is if you move quickly enough, and the pathing through the room involves less backtracking than the intended solution. Next up is the Double Dynalphos room, where I'll employ my final bomb. Hi, fellas. They weren't the smartest fellas. Honestly, it's unfortunate that that kill happens off screen because it's really funny looking. If you drop a bomb near a Dynalphos, then it looks down at it cartoonishly for a second before running away. Out here I'll need to kill the Aralphos for my second small key, and this is yet another good use for the ball and chain. That's some good RNG. Sometimes the Aralphos decides to block the ball and chain on its retraction, and then also block several stabs afterwards, and it's really annoying. Now I just need to head to the other side of the ramparts to pick up the boss key. And on my way there, I'm going to watch a cutscene with the so-called friends we made along the way, those being the Resistance, only 2 of whom I actually met during this run. Since the time I did this run, which was May of this year, 2026, a way to skip this cutscene has been discovered, and is aptly called Friendless. It's possible to do a very precise bomb boost around the cutscene trigger, and then because the cutscene is what opens the gate in front of the chest, I would then need to displacement clip past the gate, grab the key, and then displacement clip into the gate again and void out to respawn where I entered the area. I couldn't have gone for it in this run because it hadn't been discovered yet, but I haven't gone for it in runs since then either because we don't have a good setup for it yet. And not having a good setup for a bomb boost that's position precise, frame perfect, and a big time loss to fail is just not a recipe for success. The gate displacement clips are also a little odd because the gate isn't aligned with a cardinal direction on the map, but they're not too bad. Spicy Juice has successfully done Friendless in at least one run before, and done quickly in first try, it stands to save around 15 to 20 seconds, but I'm just not comfortable with it yet. Hopefully we can improve the setup at some point. But, on a positive note, it can be done a little more easily with a Jump Strike LJA instead of the bomb boost, so I think I will try to incorporate it next time I'm running 100%, which is of course a context where Jump Strike is available. Oh, I don't think I've talked about this yet. I just entered the left door on the outside, but on the inside, I came out on the right door. It's a magic door. Link's animation for exiting through a right door is most of a second faster than his animation for exiting through a left door. So in other places with double doors, like Snowpeak Ruins for instance, I've always taken right doors to get that shorter animation. But Hyrule Castle has several magic doors like that give you the fast animation on the exit side regardless of where you entered. Anyway, just making my way up the final tower now. And I can skip clawshotting to one of the earlier grates by doing a semi-precise shot to that one. Oh dear. Again, not my finest aim. Hopefully these guys cooperate. No, I'm just gonna slash. It's sometimes possible to go for a quick kill there, but they didn't aggro at the same time, so I didn't try it. If I'd tried and failed, then I would have had to ending blow one of them, and that's very slow. Here's the final Dark Nut guarding the boss door. But remember those clawshottable grates from earlier? Yep, that's the same kind of grate. The Dark Nut lives to stand there another day. Now I've got one last use for the ball and chain in the run, and if I'm smart I'll do the equip now. Okay, good. If I had tried to open the item wheel on the same frame that Puppet Zelda's boss text came up, then the game would have crashed. And it's not a huge risk because it's honestly easier to do that on purpose than it is to do it by accident, but it's good for my peace of mind to have already done the equip. There she is, Zelda. Looking mighty blue today, Zelda. I'm going to try to keep the camera facing roughly this way the entire fight, because the throne area is pretty laggy, and I'll jump attack this energy ball to deflect it as soon as possible. It's common to see people wait with a charged spin attack beneath Zelda, which is a little bit safer than jump attacking, but also a little slower unless you have great spin. But anyway, how this fight goes is completely random. Aside from reducing lag and jump attacking the energy balls, there's nothing I can do to speed it up. Zelda chooses randomly between 3 attacks, with the Triforce attack that I just got being the slowest, the lunge attack being a little bit quicker, and this energy ball attack being the one that I can deflect to deal damage. With the scripted bad attacks, it takes a minimum of 7 cycles to get 3 good attacks and finish the fight. And I'm on track for that right now. I haven't gotten any extra cycles yet, but you never know until the last energy ball. The highest number of cycles anyone's ever had in a run is 17, which is pretty awful. My personal worst is 14, and it's not uncommon to get 8s and 9s. On top of the number of cycles being random, the amount of time that Zelda waits in between cycles is also random, so the number of cycles alone doesn't always tell you how the fight was. That was cycle number 6, so if I'm lucky, the next one will be the final energy ball attack. But I actually remember this. It's not. This was not a 7 cycle. And as a matter of fact, it wasn't an 8 cycle either. Nine cycles. That's pretty unlucky. I lost 38 seconds there, right at the end of the run, to pure RNG. There was nothing I could do about that. But that's just how it goes sometimes. There is some RNG left in the run, but it's all stuff that I can react to. It's not going to be as big a deal as Zelda. Next up is Beast Ganon, where I'll use the ball and chain for a final time for a quick knockdown here. And then when Beast Ganon falls this direction, I can attack through his back. I dealt damage in a specific way there that'll make this fight a 3 cycle and skip the phase that has the most RNG to it, where Ganon takes his sweet time deciding which portal to spawn out of. Now for this cycle I'll need to be Wolf to catch Ganon, and with the way that I've been dealing damage, I'll just need to do one dashed B attack to finish the fight after that. If I can figure out where the portal is spawning early enough, then I can dash towards it, instead of making Beast Ganon come all the way to me. Now that's service. Ooh, Ganon's been learning some dance moves from King Bulblin. Maybe he'll try the chicken dance. Maybe next time. I've just got 2 phases of this final fight left, horseback and the sword fight. For this phase, I'll dodge Ganondorf's attack to make him vulnerable, and then follow him around, shooting light arrows at him. And I got the normal path. That's good. This one's pretty easy. It's getting less common now that this is better known, but it used to be that when someone would miss a light arrow shot here, they would blame Zelda. But it's not Zelda having bad aim, it's totally in the player's control. Zelda shoots wherever opponent is facing. And there's horseback. For the final phase, I'll just need to knock Ganondorf down 3 times with jump attack auto-spin combos, and then use ending blow to finish the game. I looked forward to commentating this run because of all the neat new stuff that's been found since my last commentated any % run, and I think this particular run was a good showcase of almost all of it. I'm mostly satisfied with this PB for now. It's definitely improvable, and I hope someone will beat this time and maybe even go for sub 240. But when my biggest time loss in a run is Zelda RNG that's completely out of my control, that doesn't bother me too much. I think I played okay. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, feel free to ask questions in the comments. I'll let the credits run because the music is great, but this is the end of the commentary. See ya.
Crystal again. Won't have a repair. You forget rebuild space. Hot for repairs? You keep long. Now wait to do me. Have I broken with you do this? Have you been up? This. Have we? Don't you for a promise word? We base. You get